I restart civilization in the 27th century. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. You may not believe it. You may not believe it when I tell you this. In fact, even I myself still often have doubts. Is this thing real or an illusion? Every time I think of this, I will open my closet and confirm the glowing black hole. Yes, in my closet, there appeared a black round hole that can swallow everything and cannot be explained by modern science. This is not a black hole in the astronomical sense, but a convenient name I gave it, based on its properties. This black hole was first observed by me at 18:37 p.m. on March 12, 2025. The entire black hole is a regular circle with a diameter of 1.22 meters. Having written this, Chang Ning turned his head and glanced at the closet. In the open door, the dark hole was erratic and emitted a strange light. A small part of it was in contact with the ground, and most of it just floated in the closet. Retracting his gaze, he continued typing at his desk. From March 12th to May 18th, I conducted 48 experiments in these 66 days to verify the origin and characteristics of this black hole. At first, it swallowed up half of my wardrobe. After discovering it, I threw some stones and wood over, and the black hole swallowed them easily without any reverberation. Later, I started biological experiments and threw some flies and cockroaches over, which were also swallowed easily. Then, I conducted a return experiment. I tied a rope to the wood and threw it into the black hole. After pulling back the rope, the wood could return to my side. Then, I started a comprehensive experiment. I tied a rope to the legs of the cockroaches, threw them over, and pulled them back. Some cockroaches successfully returned and were still alive. Some came back with only one leg left. I guess it was because they struggled too hard. On May 2nd, I bought a chicken, tied a rope to its leg, threw it over, and waited for 10 minutes. During this time, I could even feel the strength of the chicken pulling the rope when it was moving, and then I pulled it back. The chicken looked safe and sound. I tied a miniature camera to the chicken's neck and threw it over again. After pulling it back, I read the memory card, and the picture on it was pitch black and there was no sound. Then, I kept it in the house for 14 days. Until May 16th, the chicken still looked healthy. I tried to pass the chicken through the black hole in a different way. Half of its body was inside the black hole, and half of its body was outside the black hole, and it was thrown through with its neck stuck. This time the chicken died. So I cooked it, and the taste was no different from that of an ordinary chicken. On May 17th, I did the same experiment with a rabbit, and came to the same conclusion. Having written this, Chang Ning tilted his head and looked at his refrigerator, where there was still half a plate of rabbit meat that he had not finished eating. After animal experiments, it was preliminarily determined that the black hole is a connection point of an unknown space. There is a place suitable for life on the opposite side, but I don't know how far it is from here in time and space. Next, I decided to conduct human experiments, and the subject of the experiment was myself. Today is Sunday, May 18th, 2025, and the first human experiment has started. No matter who you are, as long as you see this letter, it proves that my experiment has failed, and I have not successfully returned from the black hole. Please hand over the information of this black hole to the country. I think the top brains will arrange follow-up experiments for this black hole. Signed, Chang Ning, May 18th, 2025. After typing this document, Chang Ning printed it out, put it on the desk, and pressed a book on the corner. He looked back at the pile of things on the ground, 2 80-liter travel backpacks and 3 80x60x120 cardboard boxes. I lowered my head and checked my equipment, a set of special synthetic fiber jungle camouflage uniforms, equipped with several protective plates for the main internal organs. 2 days worth of military compressed biscuits in my pocket, a 30-point Swiss Army knife, a windproof lighter, 2 unopened 3 meters protective masks, a handheld lighting, a pocket medical bag, a 2L military water bottle. On my waist, a 2-foot fine steel machete with a scabbard, a pair of jungle combat boots on my feet, and a short dagger stuck in my boots. I raised my hand and touched my head, and there was a camouflage beanie hat. Well, I was all set. Then he opened 2 travel backpacks and 3 cardboard boxes and checked the tents, sleeping bags, spare clothes, large medical kits, gas masks, Geiger counters, small tool boxes, compasses, lights, batteries, kerosene lamps and lighters, flints, tinder, survival candles, engineer shovels, hiking sticks, military binoculars, emergency fishing kits, pocket radios, fluorescent sticks, personal washing kit bags, toilet paper, multi-fuel stoves, titanium alloy cutlery sets, 15 days of food and water. Well, the things on the ground are no problem. In fact, he had already thrown a batch of supplies over yesterday, including 2 months of food, water, medicine, solar panels and batteries, hygiene products and weapons such as pocket slingshots and long crowbars. I hope that there is a fixed entrance and exit over there like here, so that I can receive yesterday's supplies when I go there. Chang Ning put the laptop on the table into the travel backpack, sighed, and took out his mobile phone. After hesitating for a long time, he dialed a number. Beep, beep, beep. It rang more than 10 times before the other side picked up. Hello. Xiao Ning, what's up? I'm busy here. The sound of Majin being played came from the other end of the phone, and from time to time someone made sounds like eating and touch next to him. Mom. It's okay. I just want to ask if you've been doing well recently. How are your uncle and brother? They're all fine. What can happen to them? Are you out of money? Wait, I'll touch it. Xiao Ning, I'll give you another 3,000 yuan later. No need. Mom, when you're free, go see dad too. There was silence on the other end of the phone. After more than 10 seconds, the other end said, I don't have any relationship with him now. It's not my turn to see him. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of hanging up came. Chang Ning was stunned for a while before putting down the phone. His parents divorced when he was 7 years old, and he lived with his father. Later, his mother remarried and gave birth to a younger brother, and the family was happy. His father went to prison for life. Chang Ning lived alone from junior high school until college. His mother would give him some living expenses every month, but she had never come to accompany him for a day. If the experiment failed, and the worst happened, I felt that there was nothing in this world worth lingering on. Chang Ning calmed down, threw a few boxes into the black hole first, and then threw a travel bag over. He carried the last travel bag, straightened the paper that had just been printed on the desk, then walked to the window and looked at the city. Finally, he lowered his head and went into the black hole. A dizzy moment. Since the diameter of the black hole was only more than 1 meter, Chang Ning crawled in. After his head went into the black hole, he saw a dazzling and bizarre light in front of him, which made him feel extremely dizzy. All senses were extremely weakened, and he couldn't even be sure whether he was still on the ground. The irresistible dizziness forced him to close his eyes. He lost the concept of time and didn't know how long he had been crawling. Finally, his hearing and touch returned. He felt like he was lying on a cold ground, but it was dark in front of him, without any light. He crawled forward a little more and took out the flashlight from his pocket. Looking back, behind him was a black hole like the one in his room, embedded in a smooth wall. The beam of light swept everywhere. This was a laboratory of about 70 to 80 square meters. In addition to the wall of the black hole, the 2 sides were covered with control panels, and there was a door on the opposite wall. The items he had thrown on the ground before were all there, piled up in a mess. He carefully shone the wall next to the door and found the light switch. Click. The light was not on. Looking to the side, he saw something similar to a power safe. There were several switches inside, and the one with main power written on it was facing the off direction. Chang Ning stepped forward and turned on the main power switch. Several incandescent lamps in the laboratory lit up one after another, making Chang Ning squint. Puff. A strange sound came from behind. Chang Ning looked back and saw that the black hole twisted a few times and disappeared on the wall, leaving only a smooth metal wall. Did we encounter the worst situation at the beginning? Chapter 2: The Sun and the Destruction of the World. Fortunately, before Chang Ning set out, he prepared all the materials that could be prepared according to his financial ability. When the worst situation really happened, he was not so panicked. In fact, it was not the worst situation. At least the place where Chang Ning was currently located was very similar to the environment where he grew up. The air was breathable, and there was nothing incomprehensible. Chang Ning checked his 3 large travel bags and 11 boxes to confirm that the materials and tools stored in them could be used normally. In this way, even if he was trapped here, he could at least last for about 3 months. After checking the materials, Chang Ning began to search this laboratory carefully. It seemed that the black hole that appeared in his bedroom came from this laboratory. In the laboratory, all the slogans and buttons were annotated in Chinese, so Chang Ning could understand their functions without any obstacles. There are 2 most important facilities. One is a laboratory bench. Chang Ning searched through his knowledge reserves in the past 21 years and had never seen a similar laboratory bench. It was covered with hundreds of buttons or adjustment levers of various sizes, and the most were some parameter adjustment devices. He didn't know the functions of these buttons and adjustment levers, so he didn't dare to move them. His intuition told him that it would be best not to destroy the above parameters, which might have a significant impact on the black hole. Extending from the experimental table, there were several robotic arm-like devices. Chang Ning observed carefully for a while, but did not dare to touch them. The second device was very familiar. It was a computer, specifically a mini-computer server covering an area of about 4 or 5 square meters, equipped with his familiar keyboard, mouse and 4 monitors. Chang Ning found the power button on the server host and pressed it to turn it on. The lights in the laboratory dimmed and began to flicker slightly. It seemed that the power supply was not very sufficient, but fortunately, with the hum of the host, the computer finally turned on. After turning on the computer, the current date and time were displayed in the lower right corner of the monitor. May 19th, 2625, 1311. Chang Ning couldn't help but squint his eyes. If the date displayed was correct and consistent with the date when he came, it meant that he had come 600 years later, to the 27th century. 2025 to 2625. Is this black hole a machine that spans time? 600 years is not very long compared to human history, and it is even shorter than the history of the Earth and the universe. But 600 years is indeed far away. 600 years ago in 2025 was 1425, which was still the early Ming dynasty. If a person from the Ming dynasty traveled back 600 years to 2025 and saw the steel forests, cars, mobile phones, computers, and airplanes all over the world, he would probably think that he had come to a highly developed world of cultivation. Then if he also traveled back 600 years to 2625, the 27th century, what surprising things would he see? Chang Ning took a breath, calmed down, manipulated the mouse, and looked for possible clues on the computer. Although the computer interface has changed a lot from that of his own time, most of the functions of the server system are still the same. Carefully selecting the correct icon can open the secrets stored in the computer layer by layer. 1 server program and 2 experimental programs are password protected and cannot be opened. Find the files stored locally, several of which are unencrypted and can be opened. The first few seem to be experimental records and laboratory equipment purchase reconciliation documents, and the last one was titled The Last Words. Is time really an authority that only God can manipulate? Probably. Otherwise, I can't figure out why the sun happened to appear when the experiment was about to be completed. Time is running out. I have to go back to the city to accompany my family. The program will continue to run automatically, and I have set the coordinates of that golden age. This world has ended. If there are still survivors after the sun sets, please go there for me. Signed, Richard, July 21st, 2331, Zhangjiang Science Park, Shanghai. Just after reading this file, the computer screen also flickered, with light and dark uncertain, and a line of words popped up on the screen. Low power. The computer will automatically shut down in 10 seconds. 2331. This is compared to 2025, when Chang Ning lives. This is 300 years later, and compared to the now 2625, this is 300 years ago. Chang Ning checked the files saved in the computer one by one, and sure enough, the last modification time was before 2331. After a simple check of the modification time of several files, the computer automatically shut down. In other words, this laboratory has been abandoned for 300 years. Thinking of this, Chang Ning roughly sorted out a timeline. He lives in Shanghai in 2025, and his house is located in Zhangjiang Science Park. At present, it seems that this laboratory is also built in Zhangjiang Science Park, but it appeared 300 years after his time. This laboratory was abandoned for some reasons, and 300 years later, he came. The world has ended. Does this sentence mean that the world was destroyed in 2331? That sun happened to appear. Does this sentence mean that the cause of the destruction of the world is the sun? Is this sentence a declarative sentence or a metaphor? Sun refers to a star or a nuclear weapon. If it was a disaster caused by a star, the Earth would most likely be gone, right? He would not be here. If it was a nuclear weapon, it can be explained that a global nuclear war broke out that year and the world was destroyed. Then if 300 years have passed, the nuclear radiation should have dissipated almost, right? The Earth's ecology should be recovering soon. And there will definitely be survivors of a nuclear war. Apart from anything else, in 2025, when Chang Ning lives, there are many shelters around the world that can withstand a nuclear war, not to mention 2331. 300 years have passed, and the ecology has been roughly restored. The Earth should not be in a wasteland state, right? Have the people in the shelter started to restart civilization? Thinking of this, Chang Ning decided to go out and have a look. According to the comprehensive judgment of the existing information, the outside world is likely to be suitable for survival. Now the laboratory is running low on electricity, and I can't crack the secret of the black hole. It's even more of a pipe dream to want the black hole to come out by itself. Only by finding enough energy and resources can we survive in the days to come and find a way to go back. Go back. Hey. Human experiments kill people. Chang Ning found a 30-liter spare field bag from a cardboard box and put 7 days of food, water, medical kits and hygiene products in it. Then he found a pocket slingshot and hung it on his waist with a watermelon knife. He put on a gas mask and sunglasses, hung an engineer shovel next to his backpack, held a Geiger counter, and walked to the door, turned the door handle, and gently opened the metal door. Outside the laboratory is a hall, which is also made of metal. There are several parking space signs in the middle of the hall, but the parking spaces are empty. On one side of the hall is a large battery pack that is 2 meters high and 4 or 5 meters long. Chang Ning couldn't recognize what kind of material the battery was made of. It was probably technology from 300 years later. There is a small display screen on the battery pack with an empty progress bar with a red border and the words battery 1% written on it. Low battery. On the other side, there is a metal door similar to the small door of the laboratory. Chang Ning walked over and carefully turned the door handle. The door did not open. It was probably locked. There was nothing else in the empty hall. Chang Ning turned around and walked straight to the end of the hall. It was a heavy protective door, which was very similar to the underground garage air defense door that Chang Ning had seen before. Turn the handle on the protective door, which looks like a steering wheel, with force. After a few clicks, the heavy lock falls to the ground and the door slowly opens. Chapter 3 First Exploration. There was no dazzling sunlight as imagined, and the world at 2 p.m. was also shrouded in a layer of grey fog. Looking far away, the whole world seemed to be shrouded in thick grey clouds. Lightning struck from time to time in the dark clouds, illuminating this somewhat dim world. It's not quite what I imagined. The light was too dim and the vision was insufficient. Chang Ning took off his sunglasses and stuffed them back into his bag. He sorted out his backpack and walked out slowly from the gate. Outside were dense vines, and in the distance was a dense forest. The sky was like dusk, and the forest was dark, like a ghost cave. There was a circle of concrete debris around the door, which had been broken for a long time. Some steel bars that had long been corroded by rust could be distinguished in the debris. Chang Ning squatted down, and his right hand wearing a rubber glove gently stroked the concrete residue. Without much effort, the residue turned into crumbs. If you look closely, you can see that these concrete residues have signs of burning. There was a big fire here. Chang Ning stood up and looked back. Behind him was the heavy metal air defense door he had just walked out of. The edge of the door was a circle of metal walls, embedded in a low hill. It seemed that this laboratory was a mountain fortification, and the internal walls were built of unknown metal, so it could exist for 300 years, and was still relatively solid. The outer concrete buildings outside had long been weathered and collapsed. Chang Ning looked up, and saw a large plate-like object above the gate of the laboratory's mountain fortification, which was very conspicuous. He turned around and slowly climbed up step by step, carefully stepping on each step. Only after both feet were on the ground did he start to take the next step. After about 10 minutes, he climbed safely to the top of the air defense door. Observing the plate-like object up close, Chang Ning guessed that it was a solar panel. However, a thick layer of dust, concrete powder, burning ashes of unknown objects, and some mud brought by wind and rain over the years, had accumulated on the board. He didn't bring a rag, so he carefully took out a spare vest from his backpack and started wiping the solar panel. The panel was very large, and there were some small grasses growing on it. The grass roots penetrated into the panel. Chang Ning struggled for more than half an hour before he basically finished wiping it. He checked the wires extending downward from the panel. The insulation of these wires was basically corroded, but the rubber was very thick. After checking all the way, there was no exposed metal. Walking back to the laboratory hall along the wires, looking at the huge battery, it was disappointing that the power mark on it did not increase, and there was no charging prompt. Maybe it was because the sky was so cloudy now that solar energy could not charge. Because Chang Ning didn't know anything about this battery, he couldn't judge the status of the battery at all. He could only pray that the solar charging panel could charge this battery after the weather cleared up. After walking out of the heavy iron door again, Chang Ning exhaled, closed the iron door with the external steering wheel hinge, and locked the steering wheel with the U-shaped lock he had prepared before. The laboratory contained all his belongings. Although it seemed that there was no one around here, Chang Ning was still used to doing everything he could to prevent accidents. He raised his wrist and looked at his waterproof military watch. It was now 5 minutes to 3. Chang Ning decided to explore outside first at close range and return to the laboratory before 6 o'clock, so as not to wander around outside after dark. He first climbed along the route he had just taken to the vicinity of the solar panels, and then continued to climb up for more than 10 meters to the top of the hill. From here, you can see a relatively far place. That is, Chang Ning almost exclaimed. To the west of where he was, there was an extremely conspicuous building in the distance. The building was a huge A-shaped building, towering into the sky, and half of its height was above the clouds. Except for this huge A-shaped building, at a glance, it was surrounded by dense forests, and there was no trace of human civilization. It looks like this building should be in Puxi. Lacking other reference objects for comparison, I can't estimate how tall this building is and how much land it covers. But judging from its amazing appearance from a distance, this building must not be too small. At least it is much taller than the tallest buildings such as the Shanghai Center building in 2025. Chang Ning speculated secretly, it has been 300 years since the end of the world mentioned by Richard in the laboratory. The building has not collapsed for so long. It should be inhabited by humans who can maintain the building regularly. It is estimated that this is the center of Shanghai civilization in the doomsday. He looked around slowly and carefully again, making sure that there was nothing else worth noting. So he slowly walked down from the top of the slope and explored to the west. After walking out for more than 10 minutes, Chang Ning felt that the light nearby was very dim. This forest is too dense, and the effect of blocking light is amazing. But the good news is that there are not too many weeds and vines on the ground of the forest due to the lack of light, so walking in the forest is not very troublesome. It is May now, and it is neither too cold nor too hot. Chang Ning looks around vigilantly, keeps breathing slowly and evenly, and explores step by step. Birds chirp from time to time in the forest, and insects occasionally fly out of the low weeds under his feet, proving that the ecology here is still relatively healthy. Chang Ning walked out for half an hour with a machete in one hand and a Geiger counter in the other, but the Geiger counter did not respond at all. It seems that, even if there was a nuclear war, the radiation would have almost disappeared. Chang Ning stopped, looked back at the small hill that was about to disappear below the horizon, and marked the thickest tree next to it with a machete. Then he put the Geiger counter back into his pocket, took out the compass from his pocket, and checked the direction. Well, for the first time out, let's take the due west as the direction, don't deviate, and go due east again later. This forest seems very peaceful. Chang Ning has been walking for more than an hour, and it is estimated that there are 3 or 4 kilometers of distance, without encountering any abnormalities or dangers. However, he saw many traces of human beings in the forest, such as bricks, concrete residues, unrecognizable road signs that had been toppled, and broken glass, which made him sure that this place was once a prosperous city 300 years ago. When Chang Ning was hesitating whether to turn around and walk towards the laboratory, he suddenly heard a series of thunderclaps above his head, which almost made him fall to the ground. Chang Ning opened his mouth quickly to prevent his ears from being injured, and then looked up. Through the dense century-old trees, you can see that the sky above Chang Ning was like Thor descending to the earth, and hundreds of lightning bolts were struck continuously. The sky was completely silver white. Chang Ning had seen this lightning on the hill just now, and it seemed to be very far away from him. How did it suddenly reach above him? Countless lightning connected the sky and the earth, and the thunderclaps never stopped, and the ground under Chang Ning's feet was shaking. What's going on? The extreme astronomical phenomenon frightened him, and he quickly turned back and walked quickly towards the laboratory. The lightning filled the surrounding air with wandering electric charges, and the compass was shaking and unable to point to the correct direction. After speeding up, breathing became difficult, so Chang Ning had to take off his gas mask. Fortunately, the air seemed to be good, even much fresher than in 2025. Chang Ning left marks on the trees along the way. Even if the compass temporarily fails, there is no need to worry about getting lost. Go quickly. The thunder and lightning were terrible, more violent than any thunderstorm Chang Ning had ever seen before. But just after running a few dozen meters, Chang Ning's steps suddenly stopped. He felt as if his brain was struck by lightning and exploded. The intense pain, accompanied by dizziness, made him unable to stand steadily. It seemed that there were countless steel needles in his brain, stirring his brain marrow one by one. Blood began to come out of his nostrils. His eyes went dark, and Chang Ning fell to the ground in the curtain of lightning. Chapter 4 Medicine Town. There seemed to be a ball of fire in his head, burning constantly, and it seemed as if there was a wall of steel pressing him so hard that he couldn't breathe. The flames were scorching the steel wall, which was already burning red and about to melt. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. The molten iron from the steel wall dripped into the sea in Chang Ning's mind, and then floated up again, shining like stars. He closed his eyes tightly, and his clothes were soaked with sweat. This illusion in his mind was too real. Or was there some unknown disease happening in his brain? After an unknown amount of time, Chang Ning felt that the thunderstorm in the sky had stopped, but he was still trapped in the illusion of the steel wall scorched by the flames, unable to wake up. It seemed there were footsteps coming. If Chang Ning was awake now, he would see a young man coming out of the forest. The young man was wearing a fur robe, holding a hardwood stick, with slightly curled hair scattered behind his head. His eyes were extremely deep, his skin was fair, and his lips were tightly closed. He looked around very carefully, then looked down, and was surprised to see Chang Ning lying on the ground. The boy in animal skin took a few quick steps, squatted beside Chang Ning, and shook him. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Chang Ning frowned, clenched his teeth. Sweat kept dripping, but he still couldn't wake up. The boy put down the stick, raised his hand, and touched Chang Ning's forehead. The scorching temperature made him quickly retract his palm. "Hey, wake up." The boy slapped Chang Ning's face hard. Chang Ning still didn't respond. "It's so annoying, there's no way," the boy said to himself, then leaned over to grab Chang Ning. When his hand was about to touch Chang Ning, he suddenly stopped, stood up, shook his hand, and looked disgusted. He calmed down, reached down again, clenched his teeth, turned his head to the side, grabbed Chang Ning's collar with one hand, grabbed Chang Ning's belt with the other hand, and suddenly exerted force on his waist and abdomen to lift Chang Ning up and put him on his shoulder. Chang Ning's entire body, with all his equipment and backpack, weighed almost 200 kilograms. The young man looked thin, but he could carry Chang Ning without much effort. He tilted his head, frowned, went into the woods, trotted lightly, and ran to the northeast. Water. Water. After an unknown amount of time, Chang Ning finally became conscious. His brain was still aching like a needle, but the illusion of fire and steel had disappeared. He vaguely felt that there was a vast ocean in his brain, and in that ocean, there were dots of starlight melted from the steel wall, which was extremely bright. If he was awake now, he would definitely feel that he had symptoms of hallucinations. This is one of the symptoms of mental illness. But his body was extremely dehydrated, making him unable to think and observe, and he could only moan in a low voice, "Water, water." He felt his body being lifted up, and a container was stuffed at his mouth. Cool water poured out of the container and poured onto his cracked lips. He opened his mouth quickly and sucked the water in big gulps. After gulping down a few big mouthfuls, he finally opened his eyes. What he saw was a low house that seemed to be made of wood and rattan. There was no floor on the floor of the house, just a simply trimmed dirt floor. A fire rose in the middle of the house, emitting a soft light. There seemed to be some special wood in the fire. As the flame burned, a strange fragrance wafted out of the flame. Across the fire sat a young man wearing an animal skin robe. His deep eyes looked straight at the flame, and he seemed a little stupid. Turning his head, he saw a shriveled old man next to him. His hair and beard were very sparse, but he looked very energetic. The old man was wearing a linen suit, holding a stainless steel bowl in one hand, and supporting Chang Ning with the other hand behind him. It should be this old man who fed him water just now. Seeing Chang Ning turn around, the old man squinted and smiled. "Are you awake?" Chang Ning nodded subconsciously, then suddenly remembered something, and quickly reached out to touch his body. The boy was still staring at the fire, but as if he had seen Chang Ning's expression, he said, "The things you have are in the corner on your left." Chang Ning turned his head and saw that he was lying on an animal skin mat. In the corner on his left hand side, there were indeed piles of his backpack, pocket slingshot, machete, engineer shovel and gas mask. The old man stood up, put the bowl on a mud platform against the wall of the house, looked at Chang Ning and said, "People from Yuncheng? Yuncheng, what is that?" Chang Ning was still not fully awake, and was still trying to piece together his memories of the past few days. The old man frowned and said, "You are not from Yuncheng, but you dare to walk alone in the forest in the black moon. You are quite impressive." He carefully looked at the equipment in the corner of Chang Ning and said, "Ruins hunter?" Seeing that Chang Ning was still confused, the old man smiled, sat next to the boy, and continued to say to him, "This is Xiao town. I'm the mayor Zhen Yang, and this is my grandson Zhen Lu. In short, you don't look very good, but with the help of the soul-soothing incense and the muscle-regenerating water, you should gradually recover. Continue to rest and talk tomorrow." After speaking, Zhen Yang walked out of the door. Zhen Lu also stood up. The room was really not high, and he had to bend down when he stood. He picked up a ceramic water pitcher in the corner of the room, filled the bowl that Chang Ning had drunk water with water, then bent down and walked out of the room and closed the door. He didn't speak during the whole process, nor did he look at Chang Ning. Chang Ning felt that the behavior of the grandfather and grandson was really weird, especially that Zhen Lu, but the pain and fatigue in his mind prevented him from thinking more. In a daze, Chang Ning fell asleep again under the light of the fire. When he woke up again, strong light began to shine through the gap in the door, and the fire in the room was extinguished. It seemed that the day had dawned. Chang Ning sat up, picked up the stainless steel bowl from the earthen platform, and gulped down the water in it. The water was sweet and sour, which should be the muscle regenerating water Zhen Yang mentioned yesterday. After putting the bowl down, he felt truly alive. There was a noisy sound outside the door, and several people were discussing something there. Chang Ning listened carefully, and could make out the voice of the old man Zhen Yang from last night. "Are all the preparations for the Kaiyang festival celebrations?" A somewhat hoarse female voice replied, almost, almost, everything is ready. When the time comes, we can have the parade. Thanks to Xiao and the others for their help, otherwise our clerical team would have to work until noon. A person with a very rough voice said, hey, look at what you said, Sister Zhu. It's not worth mentioning. It's all as it should be. But, I heard that Xiaolu picked up another person last night. Zunlu's voice rang out. Grandpa said that everyone in this world is a precious resource who can fight and produce. Xiao Da, with a rough voice, said in a low voice, this is what I say to the people below. What's it called? Oh yes, brainwashing. I've told you so many times, you shouldn't believe these words. Sister Zhu, with a somewhat hoarse voice, interrupted. Okay, you know the problem with this kid. Say less. Zhen Yang's old voice sounded. Ahem. It's okay. I will provide his food rations for the next few days. When he recovers from his illness, he will definitely be able to work. Looking at his clothes, he doesn't look like a down and out vagrant. And me, I can also provide food rations with Grandpa. Zunlu continued. Xiao Da said, meh, that's not what I meant. You know that the black moon has just passed, the granary in the town is empty, and there is not much food rations outside, but there is nothing to feed a useless person. It's better to let him go out to find food when he wakes up, otherwise after a while, I'm afraid he will become the ancestor who only eats, but doesn't work like that little girl named Kian Kian. Zunlu said, he is an adult. The crazy ghosts outside are all adults. Xiao Da continued to refute. Chang Ning thought about it and felt that the reason they quarreled outside the room where he slept must be deliberately for him to hear. In any case, Zhen Yang and Zunlu saved him and didn't take his belongings. From their conversation, they didn't even look through his bag, otherwise they would definitely see the biscuits and energy bars inside. Then it can be assumed that the grandparents must have good intentions. Now several people are arguing just to reveal a message to him. That is, there is not much food here, suggesting that he should get out quickly. He couldn't pretend that he didn't hear or didn't understand, so he stood up, bent over, opened the door of the inner room, and walked out. Woke up so soon. Sitting opposite the door of the inner room was a woman in coarse linen clothes, who looked about 30 years old. She should be Sister Zhu. Sitting next to Sister Zhu was a sturdy man, who should be Xiao Da. When he saw Chang Ning coming out, his dark face turned red. He coughed unnaturally, and then said seriously, did you hear it all? That saves us from wasting our breath. We don't keep waste here. You'd better show your value. Do you understand? Chang Ning didn't answer, but looked up and looked around. This hall was quite spacious and tall, and the door was open, so he could see the scene outside. However, unlike the doomsday wasteland or cyberpunk style he had originally expected, this place felt like a primitive tribe. Chapter 5 Black Moon. The original wooden houses, rattan furniture, thatched roofs. The architectural style of the entire medicine town is the same as the architectural style of those tribes in some documentaries Chang Ning watched before he crossed over. The 4 people in the hall and the people coming and going outside the hall door all wore clothes made of animal skins, burlap, or rattan. As far as the eye can see, there are very few iron products, let alone other things with higher technological content. This is very different from the human society of this era that Chang Ning expected. Originally, he thought that if a doomsday disaster occurred on Earth in 2331, whether it was a nuclear war or a natural disaster, since there were survivors and they could gather into a small society, then after 300 years, not to mention restarting civilization and reaching the state before the disaster, there would at least be a steampunk style. Right? It turned out to be a primitive society. He now began to doubt whether he had come to the Earth where he had lived before. Chang Ning shook his head again, thinking that he had just come to this world and knew basically nothing. Maybe there are special reasons, or this medicine town has some strange customs. He recalled the giant A-shaped building he saw yesterday. At least there should be relatively advanced technology there. At this time, Xiao Da yelled again, newcomer, don't you have good hearing? Chang Ning glanced at Xiao Da, nodded, and said lightly, okay, I won't take up your rations. Xiao Da snorted, and said nothing more. Zunlu next to him stared at the ceiling and said, your bag is very heavy. Is it rations? Chang Ning turned his head to look at him. He was very handsome and looked about 17 or 18 years old. When he spoke, his body shook in a strange way. His tone was a little dull, and he spoke slowly and laboriously. Chang Ning felt that he might have some problems with his brain. Zhen Yang said to Zun Lu, "Little dear, it's impolite to ask such questions to strangers." Zun Lu nodded. "Oh." Then he turned his body sideways, facing Chang Ning's position, still looking up at the ceiling, and said, "What's your name?" "My name is Zun Lu." Chang Ning. Zun Lu smiled. "We know each other's names. We are not strangers anymore. Your bag is very heavy. Is it food in it?" Chang Ning felt a sense of shame on the old face of Zhen Yang next to him, and he had something to think about. He also smiled at Zun Lu. "Yes, some of it is food in it." Zun Lu nodded and said nothing. Zhen Yang looked at Chang Ning, opened his mouth, and before he could say anything, Chang Ning said, "I know Zun Lu's condition. In my hometown, it is called Asperger's syndrome." He remembered some popular science knowledge he had read before and compared Zun Lu's symptoms with Asperger's syndrome, and almost all of them were correct. "Assy, a what?" Zhen Yang's old face revealed confusion, and then he showed ecstasy. "Can you cure Xiao Lu's disease?" Chang Ning shook his head. "We only know about this symptom, but we can't treat it." Zhen Yang sighed and lowered his head. Chang Ning remembered the purpose of coming out, looked in Xiao Da's direction, and said to Zhen Yang, "Thank you for saving me yesterday. I feel much better after sleeping. But I have something else to do, so I'm sorry I can't stay for long. Goodbye." Xiao Da sneered. Retreat to advance. You've seen a lot. You go. You said it yourself." Sister Zhu showed a look of reluctance and said, "The black moon has just passed. There should be a lot of evil beasts and insane ghosts wandering outside. Brother Chang, you might as well stay for a few days before leaving." Chang Ning heard the old man Zhen Yang say black moon last night and heard it several times today, knowing that this term should have an important meaning in this era. But he had just arrived here and didn't want to ask more questions that might expose his identity. At this time, Zhen Yang hesitated for a moment and also advised Chang Ning, "Today is the first day of Kiang Festival. You should stay in the town for 3 days. After Kiang Festival, it will be safer outside, so you can leave." Although he didn't know what the Black Moon, Kiang Festival, evil beasts and insane ghosts were, they sounded quite scary. After talking for a while, Chang Ning felt that most people here were willing to take him in. In order to avoid these potential dangers, he did not refuse. He nodded and said, "Okay." Xiao Da sneered again, with a look on his face that it was as expected. Chang Ning ignored him. Sister Zhu stood up and said, "It will be noon in a while. I will go out and check again to make sure nothing is missed." Zhen Yang nodded and waved his hand, saying, "Go, check carefully, and don't let the god of wilderness down." Sister Zhu and Xiao Da stood up together and left the hall. After the two left, Zhen Yang said to Chang Ning, "How do you feel now?" "Not bad. After a night's rest, I feel like I've fully recovered." "Fully recovered? Weren't you injured by the desolate thunder?" "Hiss, could it be the Black Moon awakening?" "How old are you?" 21 years old. 21 years old? That shouldn't be the case. The Black Moon awakening can only be experienced by minors. You are already 21. If it wasn't an injury from the desolate thunder, nor the Black Moon awakening, I don't know how to explain your symptoms last night." Chang Ning listened to the old man talking for a long time. He could understand every word, but when put together, it was as confusing as a heavenly book. He doesn't understand. At this time, Zun Lu next to him interrupted. Zhen Yang was frowning and thinking, and subconsciously asked, "What?" "He doesn't understand." Zun Lu repeated it again, then turned to face Chang Ning, his eyes still staring at the ceiling, and said, "There is a month every year when the sun is not seen, thunder is continuous, and insane ghosts and evil beasts appear most frequently. Ordinary people basically need to hide in residential areas. This month is called the Black Moon. Some people will awaken in the Black Moon before the age of 18 and become awakeners. This is called Black Moon Awakening." Zhen Yang didn't care about Zun Lu, although he thought that there could be no one in the world who didn't know about the Black Moon and the Black Moon Awakening. This young man named Chang Ning looked quite kind, and he knew his grandson's problems, so he shouldn't blame him. Sure enough, He saw Chang Ning nodded and said to Zunlu, so that's the case, thank you. Zun Yang sighed in his heart that this young man was really good, much better than those people in the town who often bullied Zunlu. Chang Ning was really grateful to Zunlu for telling him this common sense knowledge. However, what kind of weather condition is the black moon full of thunder? What natural principles are involved? After the apocalypse, are the natural laws on Earth different? Chang Ning was puzzled, but he couldn't figure it out for a while, so he simply stopped thinking about it. He turned to the inner room, took out 2 energy bars and 2 packs of compressed biscuits from his backpack, and handed them to Zunlu, saying, do you want to eat? Zunlu came out, lowered his head, and studied it carefully, and asked in confusion, what is this? Chang Ning tore open a pack of energy bars, and handed it over. Delicious. Eat? Zunlu took it, smelled it, and a scent of food he had never smelled before floated over. He took a bite and smiled. Delicious. Zun Yang was stunned when he saw the food Chang Ning took out. He had seen this kind of food in Yuncheng when he was young. It is said that only big figures above the 20th floor are qualified to eat it. In an instant, Zun Yang's brain worked frantically, speculating on more than a dozen possible identities of Chang Ning, and then denied them one by one. Where did this young man come from? Chang Ning, Zunlu said vaguely, while eating an energy bar. What is drawn on it? As he said, he pointed to the words on a pack of unopened compressed biscuits and asked, what's drawn on it? These are words. Chang Ning took the compressed biscuit and read out, produced by Luocheng Third Food Factory, shelf life. Listening to Chang Ning reading the words printed on the compressed biscuits word by word, Zun Yang was even more shocked. He can actually read. Chapter 6 Kiang Festival. Outside the door, a series of dee-dee-duang-duang sounds suddenly came from the streets of the town, interrupting Chang Ning's reading. Hearing this sound, Chang Ning's face became very interesting. He carefully distinguished the source of the sound, and found that it was a mixture of multiple musical instruments. Among them were suona, flute, oboe, saxophone, and even a few whistle sounds. All the musical instruments were chaotic and there was no melody at all. Mixing them together was a disaster. The townspeople wearing animal skins or burlap clothes on the street were very excited, laughing and running to the place where the instruments sounded. Zun Yang stopped guessing when he heard the sound of the instruments, stood up and said, the Kiang festival has begun. Chang Ning, do you want to go and see it too? Chang Ning nodded. He also wanted to see the festival celebrations in this world. Turning his head to look at Zunlu, he was eating happily. Chang Ning knew that Asperger's syndrome would cause emotional disorders in noisy places, so he ignored him and followed Zun Yang out of the hall. There was a scene of singing and dancing outside. This so-called medicine town only had 2 main streets, one east-west and one north-south. At the intersection, where the 2 streets met, a bonfire 3 or 4 meters high was burning. Chang Ning could feel the temperature of the bonfire even from a distance of dozens of meters. A dozen people, each holding different musical instruments, walked around the bonfire and played. More people circled around the dozen people, dancing as they turned. Chang Ning roughly counted them, and found that there were about 200 or 300 people. This should be most of the residents in the town. Most of the residents were young and middle-aged, and there were very few elderly people. Chang Ning only saw one person as old as Zun Yang. There were not many children either, probably less than 1/5. Zun Yang walked towards the crowd with his hands behind his back. Looking at the happy crowd, he was also smiling. I heard that north of Lincheng, the Kiang festival only lasts for 1 day. Zun Yang asked casually while strolling. Lincheng? Chang Ning frowned and thought. Yuncheng might refer to the huge A-shaped building towering into the sky. Where did Lincheng refer to? Zun Yang glanced at Chang Ning and found that he really seemed to have no idea what Lincheng looked like. He thought to himself, if he didn't come from the north, could he have come from the south? Could he have come from overseas? The two walked for a while before they came to the crowd. Everyone was very happy to see Zun Yang coming and made way for him. It seemed that Zun Yang had a high prestige in Yaosan. In the crowd, Zhao Dad and Sister Zhu, who had just been seen in the hall, were also there. Zhao Dad saw Chang Ning coming and said in a sarcastic tone, dinner hasn't started yet. The Kiang festival dinner starts after the sun sets. You're here too early. Chang Ning didn't want to pay attention to him. She pretended that the noise around her was too loud and she didn't hear what he said and ignored him directly. Xiao Da did not let him go. He walked a few steps forward and came to Chang Ning, saying, "Boy, although Yao town is not poor, we only give our rations to our own people. Look at the people around you and the smiles on their faces. Have you ever seen such a lively Kyang festival?" Speaking of Kyang festival, he seemed to become more excited and continued with a somewhat proud look. "Let alone anything else, the musical instruments in our Yao town are among the best. Everyone can play musical instruments. There are so many that even people in Yuncheng envy them." As he said, he shook the suona in his hand and smiled proudly at Chang Ning. Chang Ning couldn't help laughing. "You also call this playing musical instruments?" After hearing this, Xiao Da and several young men around him were angry and surrounded him at the same time. Xiao Da pointed at Chang Ning and said, "We don't call this playing musical instruments. What do we call playing musical instruments? You say it, as if you are very good." Chang Ning was really good. When he was in middle school, he learned erhu from a music teacher at school. The teacher was very old, and perhaps he wanted to take in an apprentice, so he taught Chang Ning seriously for 3 years. In addition, he also taught himself to play guitar. Although he is not a professional player, he can sing a few songs. He smiled at Xiao Da and said, "I can show you, if I can do it. In addition to these, do you have other musical instruments?" Xiao Da snorted, "Of course. There are plenty. Take him to get them." A young man came out from behind and walked towards another street with Chang Ning. The two entered a thatched house, which actually had an underground warehouse. The man held a torch and walked down first. Chang Ning followed in and saw that it was a dilapidated concrete house. Because it was built underground, it has not collapsed yet. There were a few lines of words painted on the door. Although they faded a little, they could still be clearly identified. "Musical Instrument Storage Room of Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine." No wonder they could take out so many musical instruments. It turned out that there was a complete musical instrument storage room. Thinking of this place, the reason why it is called Medicine Town is probably because it was built on the original site of Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. There should be many medicines before the disaster, and some Chinese herbal medicine plants can survive. Chang Ning looked in the storage room for a while and found a well-preserved erhu, so he took it out with satisfaction. Walking back to the square, Xiao Da and others saw Chang Ning holding an erhu and laughed. Xiao Da said, "You chose this one. This thing sounds terrible when played. People only use it at funerals. Are you serious about playing it on Kyang Festival?" Ha ha ha. Chang Ning did not answer. On the way, he had tuned the strings of the erhu and checked its sound box, soundboard, and bow. Although it has been hidden for nearly 300 years, this erhu can still be played normally. He stood in the middle of the dancing crowd, closed his eyes, put the erhu at his waist, and played it in a standing position. The people around saw that Xiao Da seemed to have an argument with a strange face, and gradually stopped making noise. They all stood still to watch the excitement. Zilulu, the sound of the erhu spread like the neighing of a galloping horse, and the surroundings became so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Then, a tense and rapid music sounded from the erhu in Chang Ning's hand. Chang Ning's left hand moved quickly on the bowstring, sometimes lightly picking, sometimes wiping, and holding the bow with his right hand, shaking rhythmically from left to right as the music progressed. After the whole person entered the performance state, his expression was very different from his usual serious and even somewhat paralyzed expression. His shoulders shrugged regularly, and with the movement of pulling the strings, a rhythmic beauty was presented. He closed his eyes, and his head, driven by his shoulders, was also shaking slightly rhythmically, with his hair fluttering, as if the whole person had turned into a musical note. Suddenly, the rapid rhythm turned into a melodious music. The people around felt as if they were in a vast and boundless world, in a warm and cheerful ocean. Everyone's soul was stretched in the melodious music, and they were also full of the momentum to compete with each other. Some people looked at Xiao Da and muttered to themselves, "You call this music at a funeral?" After a piece of music, Chang Ning suddenly put down the bow and used his fingers to pluck the strings, making a sound that simulated the galloping of horses. At this time, the townspeople were already boiling, and everyone looked at Chang Ning with eager eyes. After a short plucking, there was another melodious song, which led the festival crowd to a thorough carnival. Horse racing. This is a song that Chang Ning practiced for several months when he took the level 4 exam in middle school. Now he plays it without any pressure. Xiao and his men next to him no longer had the mocking expression on their faces, and they were so shocked that they couldn't speak. In this era, everyone plays some tuneless music for their own entertainment at most, and it's good enough to match the rhythm of the music. Where have you seen such a delicate song? Not to mention playing it with an unpopular instrument like the erhu. The song is over. Chang Ning smiled and greeted the people around him, then turned and walked towards the house of Zhen Yang and Zhen Lu. He has seen the so-called Kiang festival, which is just a carnival celebration party. He now wants to find Zhen Lu, who has Asperger's syndrome, and ask him some basic questions here carefully. Asperger's patients are simple-minded and can't lie, which is very suitable for him to understand this world. He feels that something is wrong here. Yaozen and Yancheng are not very far away from each other, and there are 2 human settlements. It seems that there must be other settlements of different sizes around Yancheng, similar to Yaozen. During the apocalypse, there were not many people who survived. But looking at the situation here, people's living conditions are similar to those of primitive society. Not only have scientific and industrial technologies not been passed down, but even basic handicrafts, textiles, and architecture have not been passed down. What's even more outrageous is that it seems that even writing and music have been lost. In 2025, when Chang Ning lived, there were basically no illiterate people in the country. It is hard to imagine that there were still a large number of illiterates when the world was destroyed in 2331. Since there are no illiterates and many people survived the apocalypse, why did the writing disappear? This is unreasonable. There is also music. Judging from the musical instrument storage room of Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine that I just saw, this world is indeed the world where Chang Ning is, and the types of musical instruments and the way they are played are the same. Even the musical instruments have been preserved, so why is there no music? The year 2625 is really an age full of questions. Thinking, Chang Ning walked into the Zhen family's house. Zhen Lu was still there studying the packaging of compressed biscuits. Seeing Chang Ning come in, he said, "Can you teach me to read?" Chang Ning smiled and was about to answer when he heard a commotion outside. Land shark. It's a land shark. Oh my god. Isn't the black moon over? How can there still be such a monster? Attention, hunting team. Everyone assemble. Attention, office team. Lead all children to the shelter. Chapter 7 Stargate. Hearing the commotion outside, Chang Ning turned around and ran out again. The crowd on the street that was originally celebrating the festival had already become chaotic. Xiao led a group of men who looked relatively strong and kept shouting beside the bonfire in the square, "Gather quickly. Speed." People holding wooden sticks, stone spears and simple bows and arrows continued to join the team, and in a short time, there were 50 or 60 people. On the other side, Sister Zhu led a group of adult women, protecting children and the elderly, and gathered at a stone house in the southwest corner of the square. It looked like the strongest building in the town. In the chaos, Chang Ning saw the old mayor Zhen Yang holding a longbow that looked much more delicate than others, climbing to the roof of the stone house and looking to the north. Chang Ning followed his gaze and saw something similar to a shark fin turning outside the wall of the medicine town. As the shark fin passed by the gate of the town was constantly hit violently, as if a fierce beast was constantly hitting it. The medicine town is not big, and there are wooden fences around it. There is an exit in the north and south, and a gate is standing. This gate is usually closed. Even during the carnival, it is still closed and guarded, otherwise the monster might have rushed directly to the crowd. The height of the wall gate is about 3 or 4 meters. The monster outside the town is very large, and its height has exceeded the gate. Judging from the distance between the shark fin and the tail that occasionally appears, its body length is estimated to be 20 or 30 meters. Land shark. Is it a shark? It's only 300 years, and evolution can't evolve to this. If it's not evolution, it must be mutation. Chang Ning estimated that during the world-destroying disaster, there must be some factors that caused the mutation of species on Earth. Seeing the situation in the town, Chang Ning did not hesitate, ran to the inner room, picked up the pocket slingshot and machete, ran to the stone house in the center of the town, climbed up the stone house in a few steps, stood shoulder to shoulder with Sun Yang, and looked at the north gate. At the height of the roof, you can see more clearly that the monster is clearly a shark. At this time, Xiao Da had brought dozens of people to the door. He loudly assigned tasks and assigned 20 or 30 people to carry a huge wood to the gate to prevent the land shark from destroying the gate. The others climbed onto the roof near the gate with long-range weapons and attacked the land shark. But the stone arrows shot at the monster's body, as if tickling it, and most of them slid down the shark's smooth skin and fell to the ground. The few that pierced the skin only left some red spots, and there was not even any blood. Bang, bang, bang. The land shark seemed to be irritated by the arrows, and banged the gate harder and harder. The hardwood gate was shaky, and the people who were holding the huge wood behind the gate had red faces and exposed veins, obviously using all their strength. With each collision, wood chips began to fly on the gate. It seemed that, if it was hit a few more times, even if the gate did not fall, it would be smashed. It turned out to be a high-level evil beast. This won't do, Sun Yang said to himself. He jumped down from the stone house nimbly and ran towards the north gate. He didn't look like an old man at all. High level? Is this the level that people of this era classify mutant animals? Chang Ning wanted to know more, so he hurried over. After running a few steps to the north gate, Sun Yang threw the longbow up and threw it to Xiao Da on the roof. After Xiao Da caught the exquisite longbow, he threw his short bow aside. Sun Yang faced Xiao Da, pointed at him, and whispered, "Go." Then a little starlight appeared at his fingertips, covering Xiao Da. Xiao Da's body swelled visibly, his eyes were red, and he pulled the longbow into a circle and shot an arrow at the land shark's eyes. Whoosh! This arrow came with the sound of wind, and it was more powerful than the arrows shot by everyone just now. It instantly crossed a distance of more than 10 meters and shot at the land shark. The land shark was very cunning. The moment the bow and arrow left the string, it twisted its body and barely avoided the vital eye. The arrow shot near its gills, and the stone arrowhead pierced into the flesh, and even half of the arrow shaft was shot in. Ah! It let out a furious cry, and slammed the door even harder. This is... Chang Ning was stunned for a moment when he saw the starlight emitted from Sun Yang's hand. Is this a superpower? Not only animals have mutated, but humans have also mutated. This starlight seems to be able to greatly strengthen the bodies of teammates, just like the buff added by the healing profession in the online games that Chang Ning played in the past. As the land shark rammed the door more frantically, several wooden boards that made up the gate had been broken, revealing several holes. Some of the big men blocking the gate under the city gate had begun to vomit blood and were about to be smashed to pieces. Sun Yang took a few steps forward, stood behind them, and whispered again, "Go." A piece of starlight scattered from his fingertips, enveloping the big men, making their condition visibly improved. But Sun Yang's old face turned pale, his forehead was full of sweat, and his beard was shaking slightly, as if he was under great pressure. This piece of starlight. Chang Ning felt familiar. He closed his eyes, gathered his thoughts to himself, and recalled the scene when he was unconscious yesterday. Boundless fire, towering steel walls, and the stars produced by the melting of the steel wall and the sprinkling of it on the sea below. That's it. It feels exactly the same as the starlight on Sun Yang's fingertips. Will everyone have superpowers after coming to this world? Chang Ning opened his eyes and tried to mobilize the starlight in his mind with his mind. The sea of stars began to shake under the interference of Chang Ning's thoughts, like a tsunami, one huge wave after another. The starlight in the sea became brighter in the huge waves. Chang Ning felt a force coming from his brain, which made him dizzy. At this time, there was a loud bang, and the door was finally broken by the land shark, and the broken wooden boards were scattered all over the ground. Chang Ning raised his hand, imitated Sun Yang's movements, and pointed forward. The power that filled his head flew forward with Chang Ning's fingers, and reached Sun Yang's back. The starlight did not stop, but directly passed through Sun Yang, and reached the group of men at the door. He didn't stop here, and passed the big man who arrived at the door, and reached the broken wooden door. a miracle happened. The broken wooden boards scattered all over the sky, flew back to their original positions, as if time was going backwards, and reassembled into a wooden door. This wooden door looks even stronger than the previous one. Huh? Is the effect different? Chang Ning speculated in his heart. Zhen Yang and Xiao Da turned their heads to look at Chang Ning with surprise. Ahem. Zhen Yang's breath was unstable, but he still said to Chang Ning happily, "So you are also from the Stargate? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Stargate? Is this the name for superpowers? Chang Ning nodded, and after the battle, he would learn more about this ability. He shouted, "I'm watching the gate, you guys hurry up and kill this monster." Xiao Da had already shot more than a dozen arrows at this time, and nearly half of them were shot at the land shark, but none of them hit the vital points. Although the arrows were inserted deep into the body of the land shark, the wounds were bleeding. But it was obviously not seriously injured. On the contrary, it is now even crazier. Looking at Xiao Da again, his momentum was not as strong as before. When he pulled the string again, his fingers were trembling slightly, and he felt that he was almost at his limit. Qian. At this time, Sister Zhu's anxious voice suddenly came from behind. Chang Ning looked back and saw a little girl of 8 or 9 years old walking out of the stone house where everyone was hiding. Qian? Chang Ning had heard them talking before. Before Zunlu picked him up, he also picked up a little girl named Qian who only ate and did not work. Is it her? Qian was wearing a black dress, one piece, a style that Chang Ning had never seen before. The clothes flashed a metallic light in the sun, and Chang Ning could not tell what material it was made of. He just felt that it was full of technology. Her hair was a little messy in the wind, her eyes were big and shiny, and her face was pretty. Qian, come back. Danger. Sister Zhu shouted, while running after her at full speed. But the distance between the two was getting farther and farther. Qian quickly came to the gate and whispered to everyone, "Open the door. Everyone go away and leave it to me. The contract has been sent out. Dear readers, please feel free to collect and invest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Heaven's Gate. Qian's voice was not loud, but in this noisy environment, it was clearly heard by everyone around. Zhen Yang, Xiao Da, and dozens of panting men all turned to look at her in surprise. Except for Chang Ning, these people were almost at their limit. In a few minutes, if the land shark had not been eliminated, these people should be powerless. By then, casualties are inevitable, and it might even be tragic. Qian saw that they were stunned and had no reaction, so she didn't say anything nonsense. She lightly tapped the ground with her footsteps, jumped up 3 or 4 meters high, and then kicked sideways. After a loud bang, the wooden door of the town was kicked to pieces. Chang Ning was startled and quickly dodged. How could this little girl's destructive power be greater than that monster land shark? Qian didn't hesitate. After kicking the wooden door, she walked towards the land shark step by step. Several people at the door subconsciously wanted to reach out and grab her, shouting danger. But Qian didn't seem to be walking fast, and those people didn't touch the corner of her clothes. The scene suddenly went from noisy to very quiet. Dozens of people stared at a short and thin figure with strange expressions. Even the land shark stopped moving and stared at the little human girl walking towards it. The gate was completely destroyed. Chang Ning also saw the full appearance of the land shark from inside the gate. It was a species that looked similar to the great white shark he knew, but it had strange limbs growing under its belly, and its belly fins were also degenerated. It looked like a strange species made of sharks and reptiles. The land shark opened its bloody mouth, revealing sharp teeth, as if threatening the thin figure in front. Qian's footsteps did not stop at all. When she was still 4 or 5 meters away from the land shark, she suddenly accelerated and rushed over. Everyone's eyes blurred, and they could not see her movements clearly. The next moment, the monster, which was 20 to 30 meters long and estimated to weigh dozens of tons, rose to the sky in a strange posture. Its spine seemed to be broken, and the whole shark was at a sharp angle of 30 degrees, with its head and tail almost touching each other. Below it, Qian stretched out her little fist, still in the uppercut position. The land shark rose nearly 10 meters before it began to fall. At this time, Qian stomped her feet on the ground, making a bang sound, leaving a deep footprint on the ground, and jumped up to the top of the land shark's head. Then she stomped hard on its head. The land shark's descent speed suddenly accelerated, and it landed instantly, smashing a big pit. The red blood in the pit slowly gushed out, and it didn't move. Qian also landed lightly a few meters away from the land shark. This series of actions happened in a few seconds, which can be described as lightning. Until the dust began to fall, there was still no one around, strangely making a sound. After a long time, Chang Ning spoke with difficulty. A plant. Qian glanced at him, rolled her eyes, then clapped her hands, and turned back to the town. It was not until the little girl walked past everyone that everyone began to slowly come back to their senses. Is she the mountain mover of Shenmen? I've seen mountain movers before. They are strong, but not to this extent. No wonder this little girl eats so much. It turns out she is so powerful. The men under Xiao Dao whispered to each other. Yang coughed beside him. Cough. What are you all standing there for? Why don't you go and clean up the battlefield? He turned to Chang Ning and said, Chang Ning, shall we go see Qian? Chang Ning nodded. He now has a little understanding of this world, but he is more confused. It was obviously 2025 when he came. Everything looked normal and beautiful. How come the world was destroyed after 300 years? After the destruction, the surviving humans seemed to have superpowers. Did this superpower develop after the world was destroyed, or did it exist before the world was destroyed? Or, is this superpower the culprit of the world's destruction? That little girl just now was really scary. But, it seems that I have superpowers too. Does everyone have superpowers? Or am I just one of the lucky few? With a lot of questions in his mind, Chang Ning followed Yang back to where the stone house was. At this time, the alarm had been lifted. Sister Zhu, with a group of strong women, was guiding the crowd and settling the elderly and children. Xiao Qian, who had just shined, was sitting in the corner of the stone house, pouting, and didn't look very happy. Yang walked to Qian, squatted down, and asked kindly, Girl, are you an awakener of Shenmen? How did you end up in our small town? Where is your home? Qian looked up at Yang, her eyes red. How do I know where my home is? If I knew where my home was, I wouldn't stay in this damn place. Dad is not here, sister is not here, and I can't even eat enough. Woo woo woo. She burst into tears, and her crying was no different from other 8 or 9-year-old children Chang Ning had seen before, making it difficult for people to associate her with her powerful appearance just now. Yang coughed awkwardly again and said, Isn't this the black moon just now? In fact, there are quite a lot of food in the town. After the fight, I'm even hungrier. Woo woo woo. The little lolly cried more and more miserably. Chang Ning also came over, squatted next to Yang, and said to Qian, Well, I have food. Do you want to eat it? When Qian heard this, she immediately stopped crying, raised her head, looked at Chang Ning with tears in her eyes, and said in a baby voice, Where is the food? Don't lie to me. Chang Ning touched her head. Come with me. When he turned and walked towards Yang and Zunlu's house, he felt like a kind of despised uncle in the original era. Not long after, in the Zun family's house, Chang Ning took out 5 packs of compressed biscuits and 5 energy bars from his backpack and handed them to the little lolly with crystal saliva at the corners of his mouth. She saw her skillfully tear open the package of compressed biscuits, sat on the ground, and ate it in big mouthfuls. The place where this little girl came seems to be able to eat things before the end of the world, or maybe they even have the industrial capacity to produce similar food. Chang Ning made up his mind to have a good discussion with Qian later, but he felt his arm being pulled again. Turning his head, he saw Zunlu holding the food wrapper with an expectant look on his face. You said you would teach me to read. Chang Ning nodded and said, but there are not many words on this paper. Do you have any books here? Books? It's a thick square paper with pictures and words on it. Zunlu tilted his head and thought for a while, then ran out, not knowing where to find the book. Only then did Zun Yang walk up to Chang Ning, pull him to sit down, and say, "Are you an awakener of the Stargate architecture family?" This was asking about his own superpowers. Chang Ning thought about it, and felt that he really needed the knowledge of the supernatural power of this world. In this world, where it is difficult to find written records, meeting a friendly and experienced old man is actually the fastest way to obtain this knowledge. Thinking of this, he shook his head and said, "In fact, I don't know what my ability is. Where I come from, no one has this ability, and I'm also confused." Zun Yang was not surprised, nodded, and said, "Originally, there are less than one awakened person in 100 in the world. When I was young, I saw some large towns with thousands of people, but there was not even one awakened person. Well, then I will tell you about these things." Chapter 9 Sky and Stars. Zun Yang and Chang Ning sat opposite each other and talked about the world's understanding of supernatural powers. The abilities of the awakened are granted by the god of wilderness. Every black moon is a test for humans by the god of wilderness. In the test, those who are favored by the god of wilderness will awaken. The awakened have different abilities, which are divided into 2 major gates and dozens of categories. The basis for the division is whether the awakened's ability acts on themselves or the outside world. The ability acts on themselves is the Shen, which is generally believed to be the power of the sky infused into humans. People in the Shen generally have strong combat power, such as Qian and some mountain movers, who are extremely powerful. The ability acts on the outside world as a Xingman, which is generally believed to be the power of the stars infused into humans. Although people in the Xingman do not have the combat power of the Shenman, each of them has very useful abilities, which plays a major role in people's survival and capturing food. There are dozens of detailed categories in the Shenman and Xingman. For example, you have the ability to build quickly, which should be the Xingman construction family. I have the ability to quickly heal and strengthen others, which belongs to the Xingman pharmacist family. Chang Ning listened carefully, not wanting to miss any details. This world is very different from what he imagined when he first came here. He originally thought that this was a wasteland world after the end of technology, where there might be some steampunk-style human settlements and some technologies he had never seen before. But after 2 days in Xiao town, he found that this place seemed to be called a fantasy world. Perhaps due to the disappearance of science, the people here completely use idealistic concepts to explain the abilities generated after mutation. In the era when he grew up, he had never heard of anyone worshipping any wild gods, nor had he seen anyone develop superpowers to become an awakener. If it weren't for the records on the computer in the laboratory and the traces of Shanghai Medical University he found here, he would have doubted whether this world was the original Earth. Was the world-destroying disaster 300 years ago really a mythical disaster? To find out the truth of the matter, he needs to continue to collect more evidence and information. But he still values his own abilities very much. The more he knows, the more abilities he can bring out. He wanted to ask Zun Yang, Mayor Zun, this architect, is his ability only to build quickly? Is there anything else, such as quick repair? He clearly remembered that when he reshaped the gate just now, his power gave him the feeling of repairing the gate, not building it. It was a mysterious feeling. Although it seemed that the same thing happened, he knew that he was repairing instead of building. Zun Yang thought for a moment and shook his head. I haven't seen other architects either. Most architects live in big cities like Yuncheng and Lincheng. But based on the information I've heard, architects should only have the ability of construction. Maybe restoration can also be considered a type of construction? I'm not sure. Chang Ning nodded and asked, this ability should be divided into levels, right? Like Qian just now, her ability is obviously not at the same level as ours. Of course it is divided into levels. According to the generally recognized classification, each type of ability can be divided into 5 levels: elementary, advanced, master, grandmaster, and extraordinary. The elementary one is the most common. I've also seen some advanced and master level ones, but grandmaster and extraordinary are legendary. Then what about Qian's? To be honest, I'm not even sure which type of ability she has. Her strength is very similar to that of the Shen mountain mover, but I've seen many mountain movers, but none of them are so flexible and can jump so high. As they spoke, both of them stared at Qian Qian. Qian Qian was still stuffing biscuits into her mouth. Seeing the two people looking at her at the same time, she said incoherently, "Dad said that my awakened ability is a master level fighter." What? Zhen Yang was stunned. He just said that the master and the extraordinary are both legendary levels. Who would have thought that a little girl picked up by his grandson is a master? Master? He stared at Qian Qian in disbelief. Qian Qian nodded and didn't stop talking. She didn't want to continue talking to him. Fighter? Chang Ning interrupted. It sounds like a type of ability specifically for fighting. Zhen Yang smiled bitterly. In fact, I don't know much. I only know about common systems such as the mountain moving system, the wind system, the pharmacist system, the construction system, and the command system. Most of the others are hard to come by. Now is not the era when everyone can awaken. Everyone can awaken? Chang Ning grasped the keywords very sensitively. Yes, in my grandfather's time, almost everyone was an awakener, and the legends of the Grandmaster and the Extraordinary were passed down from that time. But later, there were fewer and fewer awakeners. In our generation, I was the only awakener in the entire Yao town, and there was no one in the next generation. Chang Ning nodded. This was very important information, proving that awakeners were closely related to the apocalypse. The closer the era is to the apocalypse, the more awakeners there are. After 300 years, awakeners are already very rare. Maybe after some time, the earth will return to a time when there are no awakeners. Meh. Come and see what we found on that beast. Zhao Dao's voice came from outside, sounding very excited. Zhen Yang stood up, nodded to Chang Ning and Qian Qian, and walked out quickly. At this time, Qian Qian had already stuffed the last piece of compressed biscuit into her mouth. Chang Ning felt that this little girl was really mysterious. She had such powerful strength at a young age, and most importantly, the clothes she was wearing were obviously of a very high technological level. In 2025, when Chang Ning was growing up, he had never seen clothes of this texture. They looked quite defensive and beautiful. So he tried to ask Qian Qian, "Qian Qian, what's your last name?" Qian Qian was slowly chewing the last bite of the biscuit, with an expression of aftertaste and reluctance on her face. When she heard Chang Ning asking her, she replied, "My last name is Yun." It turned out that the little girl's name was Yun Qian Qian. Chang Ning continued to ask, "Where are you from? Where is your home? Do you remember?" Young Qian Qian had an expression of endless aftertaste on her face, but when she heard this question, her little mouth pouted again. "I don't remember. My father doesn't want me anymore." Chang Ning saw that her eyes were clearly hiding something. Children of this age are really bad at lying. But he couldn't ask any more questions, so he casually handed her the Yahoo by the wall and asked, "Do you want to play it?" Young Qian Qian's attention was drawn, and she forgot about crying. She reached out and took the Yahoo and asked, "How to play it?" "Hold this bow in your right hand and play it on this string, like this." Chang Ning showed her the movements of playing the Yahoo. Young Qian Qian nodded, picked up the bow with her right hand, and pulled it on the string. The expected unpleasant Yahoo sound did not appear. With a snap, the whole Yahoo broke into two pieces. "I didn't use much force." Young Qian Qian started to pout again. Chang Ning also had a black line on his face, and said, "It's okay," while taking the Yahoo back in his hand. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration, and according to the method of repairing the door just now, he sent out the power in his mind to the broken Yahoo. Starlight emerged from his fingertips, and in a blink of an eye, like a movie played in reverse, the Yahoo was restored to its original state, and it looked even newer than when Chang Ning took it. Chang Ning roughly determined one thing: if the so-called architectural family only has the function of construction, but not the function of repair, then my ability should not be that of an architect, but an ability to repair items. This requires going to big cities such as Yansheng, and communicating with real architects to confirm. But no matter what this ability is called, it's really cool. On the entire Earth, I wonder how many things are left by humans before the disaster? Can I repair them all? Guns, vehicles, ships, airplanes and even nuclear bombs? As long as I can find them, I can repair them, right? It's really a practical ability. The contract has been signed, so everyone can collect and invest with confidence. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 10 Fourscore. Look what I found. Zunlu rushed in from outside with great joy, still looking up at the ceiling, but his expression looked very happy. He held up 2 thick hardcover books and handed them to Chang Ning. Chang Ning reached out to take them. The 2 books were hardcover in hard plastic shells, and the paper inside seemed to have some chemical fibers added, which was slightly different from the paper when Chang Ning grew up. So after 300 years, the 2 books that have been preserved are actually intact, but they look a little old. One is the history of film development in the 23rd century, and the other is the Chinese Idiom Dictionary, 2328 edition. Chang Ning flipped through them casually, and the printed text inside was quite clear. Especially the idiom dictionary. Each idiom is marked with the phonetic symbols of Chinese pinyin. He picked up the dictionary and decided to teach Zunlu Chinese pinyin first, so that he could learn by himself according to the pinyin in this book. Young Qian seemed to be quite interested in this book as well, stretching her neck to read it from the side. But after only 10 minutes, she yawned, touched her belly, smacked her lips, and went out. Chang Ning taught Zunlu pinyin in the house until dark. Although Zunlu didn't look very smart, his learning ability made Chang Ning ashamed. In one afternoon, he not only learned pinyin, but he could even look up words in the dictionary according to pinyin. By the time it was getting dark, he had already recognized more than 100 Chinese characters. The smell of barbecue wafted him from the square, and Chang Ning's stomach growled. He then remembered that he didn't seem to have had a proper meal today. What does the food taste like in the primitive town in the 27th century? Chang Ning felt that he shouldn't have too high expectations, but he still wanted to experience it. Chang Ning poked Zunlu, who was already absorbed in reading, and asked him, "Is it time for dinner? Do you want to go eat something?" Zunlu didn't look up and replied, "I'm not very hungry, you can go eat first. Go to the square to find Sister Zhu, she will give you food." Chang Ning nodded, turned around and walked out to the central square where people danced and played music during the day. Although there was an attack by the land shark, the atmosphere of the Kaiyang festival in the town was still very warm. The black moon has passed, and the land shark has not caused any casualties to the town. Every town resident has a smile on his face. A huge piece of meat was sizzling on the bonfire, and it had been roasted to golden brown. The texture of this piece of meat is very separated, and it doesn't look like fat, but it has oil stains under the flames, which makes people very appetizing. Chang Ning used his ability to repair the town gate in the afternoon battle, and the townspeople basically had a deep impression of him. Seeing him coming, everyone made way for him to easily pass through the crowd and walk to the innermost circle around the bonfire. Many people were already sitting here, including the mayors and Yang, the town's guard captain Xiao Da, the internal affairs captain Sister Zhu, and the little lolly young Qian. Several people were talking, and when they saw Chang Ning coming, Zhen Yang asked him to sit down. Except for Xiao Da's embarrassment and hostility, everyone else looked at him with kind eyes. Only young Qian didn't notice Chang Ning at all, and was still staring at the barbecue. "Yao Town welcomes you." Zhen Yang stretched out his wrinkled old hand and made a handshake gesture. Does this mean that he has been accepted by Yao Town? Can he live here in the future? Chang Ning nodded, stretched out his hand, and shook hands with the old mayor. Sister Zhu stood up with a smile, sprinkled a handful of coarse salt on the barbecue, then took out a bone knife, cut off a layer on the outside, handed it to young Qian first, and then continued to cut a piece for Chang Ning. The barbecue was turned over, and Sister Zhu continued to sprinkle salt, cut meat, and handed it to the people around. Zhen Yang said to Chang Ning, "This is the meat of the land shark in the afternoon, try it." Chang Ning took a bite. Although there was no other seasoning on it except coarse salt, there was a rare fresh fragrance emanating from the meat. It was a little fishy, but it didn't affect the taste too much. It was quite delicious. Zhen Yang continued, "Although this land shark is ferocious and often causes casualties to us, its whole body is a treasure. Shark meat can be eaten, and it is stronger than ordinary food. Shark skin can be made into clothes, and its protective ability is also good. Moreover, a force core was found in the body of this land shark. Force core? What is that? Chang Ning asked while chewing. It is a very rare material that allows people who have not been blessed by the god of wilderness to awaken and have the opportunity to gain abilities. Can it create superpowers? A bit of a bullshit. Of course, those who become awakened through force cores are generally a little worse than those who are blessed by the god of wilderness. Chang Ning nodded. It is normal for superpowers created by external stimuli to have certain defects. Zhen Yang went on. You also know that in our Xiao town, besides me, there are no other awakeners. Xiao Chang and Qian Qian, although you are awakened, you do not completely belong to our Xiao town and you will always leave. I want to ask you to a favor with my old face. Can this force core be used by Xiao Da? Qian Qian and Xiao Chang have made great efforts in hunting the land shark this time. Only with your agreement can you decide the ownership of this force core. Xiao Da's eyes widened. Give it to me, meh. Actually Zun Lu. Zhen Yang waved his hand. Although Zun Lu is a good boy, you all know about his brain problems. Besides, he is only 17 this year. He still has a chance to awaken during the Black Moon next year. Chang Ning said, I didn't actually do much. I just repaired the gate once. Qian Qian killed a land shark. If she has no objection, then I have no objection either. Everyone's eyes fell on young Qian Qian again. Young Qian Qian's hands and mouth were oily. Seeing that everyone was looking at her again, she swallowed the meat in her mouth reluctantly and said, whatever, as long as there is meat, I don't care about the rest. Zhen Yang nodded and said to Xiao Da, let's go, we'll give you the force core first. The two stood up and walked out through the crowd. Chang Ning also stood up and followed him, saying, how do I use the force core? Can I watch from the side? Zhen Yang said, of course, come with us. The three stood up and walked towards the Zun family's house. Not sure if it was an illusion or if the land shark meat was really useful, Chang Ning felt that his body was much lighter and his strength seemed to have increased a little. When they arrived at the Zun family's house, a bonfire had been lit in the house and Zun Lu was still reading there. Zhen Yang asked Xiao Da to lie on a hide mat, took off his shirt, and exposed his upper body muscles. Then he took out a flesh-red metallic object from his arms. The shape was irregular, roughly triangular. It's about to start, hold it in. Zhen Yang said to Xiao Da seriously. Xiao Da nodded, closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and lay there motionless. Zhen Yang took out another alloy knife, squatted beside Xiao Da, and gestured on his chest. Scalpel. Chang Ning recognized the thing in Zhen Yang's hand at once. After gesturing for a while, Zhen Yang chose the right place and gently cut with the scalpel, and a trace of blood emerged from Xiao Da's chest. What is this? Surgery? Don't you need to disinfect it? Besides, the light is so dark. Chang Ning had countless complaints in his heart, but Zhen Yang seemed to be very experienced. After one cut, there was not much bleeding. He opened the chest cavity along the incision and exposed the internal organs. One of the organs looked very similar to the force core in Zhen Yang's hand. Is that the thymus? Chang Ning recalled his knowledge base. He had dabbled in various knowledge, but not in depth. In the human anatomy, if it was the heart, liver and other major organs, he would definitely recognize it at a glance, but Chang Ning had not paid much attention to the thymus. But what appeared in that position could only be the thymus. Zhen Yang reached into Xiao Da's body, gently removed his thymus, and cut open the connecting duct with a scalpel. Then he gently put the force core taken from the land shark in. It fit perfectly. Finally some scientific signs appeared. The thymus is a gland in the human body that secretes hormones. Could the awakening mutation of humans be related to the unknown hormones produced by this mutated gland? Please recommend, collect, and invest. Leo Chao is kneeling here to thank all the readers. Chapter 11, Mountain Mover. At night, Chang Ning had a very long dream. He dreamed of the raging fire and the steel wall, as well as a sea dotted with bright stars below. On the sea, the stars kept moving, sometimes merging, sometimes dispersing, merging, and splitting, and constantly reorganizing into various shapes. In the waves of the sea of stars, sometimes a brain pattern emitting blue light was revealed, and sometimes it was disassembled and combined into the shape of a heart. In the patterns of these internal organs of the human body, the most shining places are always those glands. This seems to be the pituitary gland. This seems to be the pineal gland. And this is the thymus. In his dream, Chang Ning actually recognized these organs and glands one by one. When he woke up the next day, Chang Ning felt that the sea in his consciousness had become deeper. When he woke up, the sky was bright. Chang Ning looked at the waterproof watch. It was more than 8 o'clock, still early. Next to his animal skin bed, there was another animal skin mat, which belonged to Zunlu. Zunlu insisted on sharing a room with Chang Ning last night and reading the dictionary next to Chang Ning. By the time he went to bed, he had already read more than half of the thick book. He was still sleeping at this moment, and Chang Ning did not disturb him. He took out his toiletry bag and washed up outside the house. Just after brushing his teeth, he heard the sound of someone walking in the house. There was a bedroom on each side of the whole of the Zun family's house. Chang Ning turned around and saw Zhen Yang and Xiao Da coming out of another bedroom. Xiao Da had just had his internal organs replaced by Zhen Yang yesterday, but now he looks ruddy and walks briskly, not at all weak after the operation. This is probably because of Zhen Yang's pharmacist awakening ability. Xiao Da got the power core and has awakened to become a mountain mover. Now we have to test the power to see whether the power core of the advanced evil beast land shark can bring us a primary mountain mover or a high level mountain mover. Do you want to come and see it? Zhen Yang was in a good mood and asked with a smile. Test the power. Let's go. Chang Ning wiped his face and followed the two out. What is a high level mountain mover? Adhering to the principle of asking if you don't understand, Chang Ning chatted with Zhen Yang on the way. Mountain movers are the most common type in Chinaman. There are 5 different levels of strength, and there are also corresponding common names. Primary mountain movers are called mountain movers. If they are advanced mountain movers, they are generally called mountain movers. Master level mountain movers are called mountain movers. When they reach the Grandmaster and Extraordinary, they are called the King of Power and the Emperor of Power respectively. The awakened people of other sects and other systems also have similar names. For example, my system is generally called healers, pharmacists, great pharmacists, etc. from low to high. You will slowly know these in the future. Zhen Yang explained very patiently. Chang Ning also listened very carefully. Although he awakened the superpower of repairing items, Chang Ning felt that he had a big shortcoming, that is, his own quality was insufficient. Before crossing the black hole, Chang Ning had worked hard to exercise his body for 3 months, but he was only a little better than ordinary people in his time. He was not strong here at all. Now he saw a way to strengthen the body, and he was very curious. The 3 people walked out of the Zun family's house and walked along the street all the way to the south gate of the town. Along the way, the men of Xiao Da's hunting team also joined them. When they arrived at the south gate, there were already dozens of people in the team. The gatekeeper of the south gate was also Xiao Da's men. When he saw them coming, he quickly opened the town gate and everyone walked out. Outside the town gate was a well-maintained flatland, with only some shrubs and weeds growing, and no big trees. Not far from the gate, there were several large round stones. Judging from the texture, they looked like granite. Several stones were neatly lined up in a row, from small to large. The smallest one was estimated to have a diameter of half a meter, and the largest one was as much as 4 or 5 meters in diameter. Xiao Da walked to the stones, starting with the smallest one, and with a little effort, he lifted it up without blushing or panting. The men around him cheered. Xiao Da laughed angrily and said, "What are you making a fuss about? I can lift this stone a long time ago. You have seen it before." As he said that, he walked to the second stone. The stone is estimated to be about 1 meter in diameter. Chang Ning estimated it in his mind. He couldn't remember the density of granite very clearly, but it should be between 2.5 and 3 grams per cubic centimeter. Even if it is 2.5 grams per cubic centimeter, a sphere with a diameter of 1 meter has 0.52 cubic meters, which is equal to 520,000 cubic centimeters. Multiplying the two, it weighs about 1.3 tons. Xiao Da reached out and hugged the stone, shouted lift, exerted force with both arms, hugged the ball to his chest, then took a deep breath, and suddenly lifted it up, lifting the stone ball over his head. Although it looked very strenuous, it was lifted very steadily without shaking. Chang Ning remembered that when he was growing up, the world record for weightlifting such as this clean and jerk, seemed to be more than 200 kilograms, but less than 300 kilograms. It was a fraction of the weight of the stone Xiao Dad just lifted. It seems that the Force core has indeed mutated this guy. Xiao Dad was very happy holding the stone, with an ecstatic look on his face. He held it for a while, before throwing it aside with a loud noise. Then, he walked to the third stone, which was about 1.8 meters in diameter. It should weigh about 6 times as much as the previous stone, close to 8 tons. Xiao Dad hugged the stone ball with his arms, his face flushed, and he roared, "Get up." The stone ball moved, and left the ground, but Xiao Dad was no longer able to lift it up. He held on for more than 10 seconds with his arms trembling, and the stone ball fell to the ground with a bang. Xiao Dad leaned to the side, and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Zhen Yang nodded. "It's about the same as I expected. The strength of a primary mountain mover is still a bit far from that of an advanced mountain mover. Does an advanced mountain mover have to lift this stone?" Chang Ning asked. Zhen Yang said, "Yes. These stones were used by the elders of Xiao to test their strength more than 200 years ago, when awakeners were everywhere. These stone balls represent the 4 levels of beginner, advanced, master, and grandmaster. Those who lift them above their heads have the corresponding strength." As he spoke, he pointed to several stones. The beginner stone ball was the 1.3 ton one that Xiao Dad moved the second time, and the advanced stone ball was the one that Xiao Dad failed to move, which was about 8 tons. The stone representing the master level mountain mover was about 2.5 meters in diameter, and was estimated to be more than 20 tons. The stone representing the grandmaster level mountain mover was the largest one, which was already larger than an ordinary room, and must be more than 100 tons. Chang Ning was secretly shocked and asked, "What about the extraordinary ones?" Zhen Yang smiled and said, "Even in the era when there were the most awakened people, Xiao had never produced an extraordinary mountain mover, so no one could move extraordinary stones here. But I heard that the extraordinary mountain movers are real mountain movers and can easily lift a small mountain." After seeing the abnormal power of the mountain movers, Chang Ning became more and more worried about his physical condition. He walked back to the Zun family's house worriedly. Zun Lu had already gotten up and was holding the dictionary and continued to read it. It seemed that he was almost finished. "There is no use in being anxious, just relax first." He said this to himself, then sat next to Zun Lu, picked up the book History of Film Development in the 23rd Century, opened it and started reading. Movies in the 23rd Century. TSK. I thought there would be some deep brain computer interaction and dream experience movies. After flipping through the book, it was actually similar to the movies in the early 21st century, with some more immersive movies, and our technology already had a prototype in the 21st century. 200 years have passed. Hasn't technology developed much? Does this have anything to do with the end of the world in the 24th century? Chang Ning gradually immersed himself in the book. Sure, when Chang Ning was reading enthusiastically, the book was suddenly snatched away. He looked up and saw that it was Zun Lu who took his book away and then stuffed the idiom dictionary over to him. "I finished reading. Let's change." How could Chang Ning be interested in the idiom dictionary? He shook his head, stretched out his hand to grab the History of Film Development in Zun Lu's arms, and pulled it a few times, but he couldn't pull it. Damn. This kid is so strong. Chang Ning was depressed, so he had to ask, "It's okay to show you this book, but you have to tell me where did you get these 2 books from? Are there other books?" Zun Lu stared at the ceiling and thought for a while, then said, "Outside. There is a collapsed basement." I looked inside. The collapsed basement, is it a relic before the destruction of civilization? Chang Ning was no longer sleepy when he talked about this. His current ability is to repair, and he just lacks the broken things left over from the destruction of civilization. "Can you take me to see it?" Zun Lu thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay. Please collect and recommend." Chapter 12 Shanghai Museum East Building. "I want to go too." A crisp Li voice came from under Chang Ning's feet. Young Kai Qian raised her head, staring at Chang Ning with 2 innocent big eyes, and then looked at Zun Lu. "Miners cannot leave the town." Zun Lu stared at the ceiling and said seriously, "But I'm very powerful, can you beat me?" Young Kai Qian retorted. Zun Lu thought about it, nodded and said, "I can't beat you. Okay, let's go together. He led Chang Ning and Yun Kai and Qian to the north gate of the town. The guard at the door naturally knew the three people and knew that two of them were powerful awakeners. But when the three people left, he still reminded them, the black moon has just ended, and there may be evil beasts and crazy ghosts wandering outside. You have to be careful. If you are not in a hurry, go out the day after tomorrow. It will be much safer. Chang Ning knew Yun Kai and Qian's combat power and ignored the guard's words. Yun Kai and Qian seemed to have not heard it at all. Only Zun Lu stood at the gate of the town. He thought carefully and nodded, saying, we are just going to a very nearby place. I have walked this road hundreds of times. Nothing should happen. After leaving the town, Zun Lu led the way in front, and Chang Ning and Yun Kai and Qian followed behind. Chang Ning was a little cautious at first, but when he saw Zun Lu and Yun Kai and Qian jumping around like they were on a picnic, he gradually relaxed. The forest at this time was much brighter than when Chang Ning came on the first day. The black moon had passed, and the sun was shining on the earth again. The dark clouds that shrouded the sky and the endless thunder and lightning had disappeared. The three of them walked for about an hour and came to an open space in the forest. Not to mention the evil beasts on the road, they didn't even see an ordinary wild beast. The ground here was full of glass fragments, and there were many collapsed steel structures. Before the end of the world, it should have been a building with a full glass exterior wall and a large area. Zun Lu pointed to a broken wall in the middle of the glass pile in front of him. There was a black hole under the broken wall, and said, the entrance is right there. I found it when I came here to play before. Several people stepped on the glass, making a creaking sound that made their teeth ache. Soon they came to the outside of the hole. Looking closer, there was a heavy iron door inside the hole, but I don't know if it was rusted or violently destroyed. There was a big hole in the middle of the door, enough for two people to enter side by side. The sunlight shone through the hole in the iron door and shone on a downward staircase, forming a scattering inside, reflecting the appearance of the basement. If you go down without direct sunlight on your head, you should be able to see it more clearly. Zun Lu led the way down. There were some words painted next to the stairs. He stopped halfway and looked at the words carefully. He turned back and said to Chang Ning, now I know these words. Warehouse is a restricted area. Tourists are not allowed. East Hall of Shanghai Museum. Did I read it correctly? East Hall of Shanghai Museum. Chang Ning roughly knew the current location. This museum will open in 2022. He had visited it 3 or 4 times before he came here. He didn't expect that when he came here again, it would be 600 years later, and he could only see the collapsed state. He nodded and smiled at Zun Lu. All of them are correct. You only read the dictionary for one day. Can you remember them all? Zun Lu continued to walk down, saying, you can tell me which page a word is on. Extreme joy leads to sorrow. Part 50 idiom. On page 388, the fourth word, from Huananzi Deo Angsan, which means that, when happiness reaches its extreme, something sad happens. Great. Come on, tell me another one. Zun Lu seemed to be very interested in this game. Tell me another one, let me think. At this time, they had walked down the stairs and came to the dim basement. Chang Ning had just thought about whether to take out the portable flashlight for lighting when he heard heavy footsteps coming from a room under the stairs. Then, a big man appeared at the door of the room. He had dark skin, a bald head, and several hideous scars on his face. He wore a metal smock similar to fish scale armor on his upper body. Several heavy iron plates were tied to his limbs to protect his whole body. He held a spear made of fine steel in his hand. The weight of this equipment was at least several dozen kilograms. Seeing the easy way the big man walked, you can tell that he was incredibly strong. Can't we use idioms casually? Is it really the case that happiness turns to sorrow? Well, 3 little kids. The big man glanced at Chang Ning and the other 2 casually and said with undisguised contempt. The 3 didn't expect that there were other people in the basement. They were stunned for a moment and stopped. I haven't seen little ghosts in the wild for a long time. Hey, what are you 3 doing here? The big man asked again. Looking for books. Zun Lu replied. Looking for books? Do you know how to read? The big man became serious, looked at the 3 people carefully, and his eyes lit up. Hey, little girl, take off your clothes and give them to me. Chang Ning thought, this man is not a pervert. He didn't even let go of Yun Qian, who was only 8 or 9 years old. The big man's greedy eyes fell on Yun Qian's black clothes with a metallic luster for a long time, and then shifted his eyes to Chang Ning. Seeing his camouflaged uniform, he was happy again. And you, take off your clothes. Give them to me. This, even me is not spared? Chang Ning was about to curse when he heard Zunlu next to him ask, are you a crazy ghost? Grandpa said that crazy ghosts are bad people. The big man laughed. How can a crazy ghost talk? Children have no knowledge. I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm the most powerful relic hunter in Guangcheng. Xiao Bao, have you heard of me? Relic hunter? Chang Ning recalled that it seemed that Zhen Yang mentioned this word when he was unconscious. At that time, he suspected that he was a relic hunter. It seems that this is a more common profession in this era. Zunlu did not answer Xiang Bao's question, but asked, how powerful are you? Xiang Bao was a little annoyed by Zunlu, who was not very good at chatting, and shouted, in short, you are very powerful. You won't understand, even if I tell you. Zunlu shook his head, I don't think you are very powerful. Chang Ning listened to the conversation between the two and thought, how could we let an autistic person be in charge of communication when we three came out? What happened? Xiang Bao saw that the three young men opposite did not show any fear, but smiled and asked, are you young nobles from Yuncheng? Zunlu shook his head subconsciously and said, no. Xiang Bao leaned forward, his muscles tensed, his eyes full of greed and murderous intent, raised his fine steel spear, made a beautiful gunflower, and danced the spear with a buzzing sound, full of momentum. He took a step forward and grinned, since you are not a noble from Yuncheng, leave your equipment. Xiang Bao's momentum was amazing. Under the threat of this momentum, Chang Ning and the other two unconsciously stepped back a few steps and gave way to the stairs. Xiang Bao took the opportunity to move forward and occupied the position at the staircase. Chang Ning felt that something was wrong with the situation. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Yun Qian say, you are annoying. She took a step forward and made a starting position before attacking. Chang Ning silently mourned for Xiang Bao. Xiang Bao shouted, raised his spear, and jumped up. Chapter 13, Wind. To the surprise of Chang Ning and the other two, Xiang Bao, who jumped up with a spear in his hand, did not attack them, but instead quickly climbed the stairs leading to the ground. In fact, Xiang Bao's real name is not Xiang Bao, it is just one of his aliases. He is not from Guangcheng, and all the information he just said is false except for the profession of ruin hunter. Even his appearance deceived Chang Ning and the others. He looks muscular and full of power. At first glance, people think that he belongs to the Awakener of the Mountain Mover system. But he is a high-level Awakener of the Gale system, known for his extreme speed. As a relic hunter, Xiang Bao has experienced more than 10 years and hundreds of explorations of different ruins. No matter what strange things he encounters, or what kind of people he meets, he can almost get away unscathed, relying on his deceptive appearance and language. Generally speaking, if you meet someone who looks very powerful in the ruins, he will run away before the other party notices him. As a high-level Awakener of the Hurricane system, his speed is almost unmatched, and even master-level Awakeners of other systems find it difficult to catch up with him. If he encounters someone who doesn't look very strong in the ruins, he will intimidate the other party with his amazing momentum, making the other party mistakenly think that he is a very powerful mountain mover Awakener, so that he will surrender and hand over what he wants. If the enemy does not surrender at this time, then no matter how strong the opponent is, Xiang Bao will escape at the first time, without hesitation. If he judges that he can solve the opponent through subsequent observation, he will come back to circle with the opponent. He never fights head-on, always relying on the speed of Hurricane to make the enemy terrified, exhausted, and finally collapsed. This time is no exception. Although the three little ghosts on the opposite side don't look special, what if there is a spiritual Awakener? He has poor resistance to spiritual attacks and can't take risks. So after Yun Qian posed for a counter-attack, he immediately jumped up and accelerated to the exit of the basement. Run first for respect. Yun Qian didn't react at all. She threw a punch and hit the air. She was stunned for a moment. Chang Ning was standing at the back of the three people. He could see more clearly that Xiao Bao's jump was heading upwards, not towards Yun Kai and Qian. Although he didn't know what the other party wanted to do, he looked up and saw the steel door of the basement that was severely rusted and had a hole in the middle. He had an idea in his mind. Xiao Bao accelerated to the extreme in a very short time and was about to return to the ground in an instant. Chang Ning below had already stretched out his finger, mobilized the power of the Sea of Stars, and tapped the steel door. What was faster than Xiao Bao was the speed of repairing the door. Xiao Bao had just accelerated to the extreme and was about to pass through the door when the iron door had been repaired. The basement, which was originally only slightly dim, instantly became absolutely dark without a trace of light. In the darkness, he directly hit the steel underground warehouse door with a thickness of more than 10 centimeters, making a high decibel collision sound that buzzed throughout the basement. Chang Ning took out the lighting and aimed the beam of light at Xiao Bao lying on the stairs. A large bump covering half of his forehead appeared on his head. Although his skin was dark, the big bump was still very conspicuous with a blood red color. Yun Kai and Qian was angry. He actually dared to run. This is how a fight is fought. Is there any basic integrity towards minors? She stared with big eyes, wrinkled her nose slightly, walked up the stairs, and approached Xiao Bao step by step. Don't come over here. The big bump on his forehead made Xiao Bao burst into tears. The rare mistake in more than 10 years made him full of fear. When he shouted this sentence hoarsely, blood slowly flowed out of his nose, and the whole person looked funny. But no matter how loud the roar was, it couldn't stop Yun Kai and Qian's steps. She quickly walked to Xiao Bao's side, stretched out her arm like lightning, grabbed Xiao Bao's ankle, and then swung it back. Xiao Bao's body made a semicircular movement curve, and with a bang he returned to the starting point when he ran away just now and was thrown to the ground face down. His body trembled. Although he was seriously injured, he still turned over with difficulty and yelled at the three people, "Please spare my life. I was wrong. I'm willing to hand over everything." Yun Kai and Qian walked down the stairs again, stood beside him and asked, "Do you have any food?" "Food? Yes, yes, yes." Xiao Bao struggled to stand up and walk to a room next to the corridor where he had just come out. The three followed him into the house and found a big bundle in the house. Chang Ning recognized that it was a bundle made of polyethylene woven bags. It was about 1 cubic meter and bulged like it was filled with a lot of things. Xiao Bao said with a sad face, "I found 3 relics this time. All the valuable things are in them." He opened the bundle and revealed the things inside. Under Chang Ning's lighting, you can see that a small half of the bundle is various cans, all kinds of cans, and the most are canned fruits. In addition to cans, the types of other things are very messy. Chang Ning took a look and saw that the most were some bottles and jars, which looked like ceramic containers. Xiao Bao pointed at the cans and said, "These are my biggest gains this time. It may take several years to find a relic with so much food left." Yun Kai and Qian had already jumped over and squatted down to look through the cans. Chang Ning turned back to close the door of the room and swept the light around the small room, then walked over, picked up a can, and shone the production date on the bottom, January 23, 31 300-year-old canned food. "Are these all expired?" Chang Ning said, and then looked for the expiration date on the can. Yun Kai and Qian and Zunlu had each picked up a can, opened it and started eating. "Shelf life. Where is the shelf life?" "Found it. Here, let me see. It's actually 100 years. Chang Ning didn't quite remember the shelf life of ordinary canned food in the early 21st century. It was probably at most 10 years, right? Canned food in the 24th century can actually last for 100 years. Maybe there was some new preservation technology invented. But even if the shelf life is 100 years, these are completely expired. Hey, it's really expired. Don't eat it." Chang Ning tried to stop Yun Kai and Qian and Zunlu. Yun Kai and Qian ignored him. Zunlu asked, while chewing a piece of yellow peach slowly, "What is expired?" "Expired means the shelf life of the food has passed. Eating it may cause diarrhea or even death." Zunlu stopped chewing and looked down at the words printed on the can. After a while, he said, but I have eaten this kind of canned food at least 10 times since I was a child, and it's fine every time. Chang Ning sighed and said, wouldn't it be better to eat something fresh? Zunlu shook his head, these fruits and noodles are not fresh at all. Chang Ning noticed that Yun Kai and Qian and Zunlu didn't even look at the canned meat. They found some canned fruits and canned pasta. The bear leopard next to him had a painful expression on his face. There are no fruits and staple foods in this era. People's main ration is meat. Could it be that even agriculture has been lost? Never mind. The shelf life of canned food is just the best time to use it. In fact, expired canned food is usually fine, but the taste will be much worse. Chang Ning didn't care what they ate, but squatted down and looked through another part of the items in Xiang Bao's bag. The top layer is full of well-preserved ceramic tableaux and containers. Well, although civilization has been destroyed for 300 years, for ceramic utensils, as long as they are not broken, they can still be preserved intact as new. Put the ceramic utensils aside, there are some other things underneath. This is... Chang Ning's eyes lit up. It looked like a pistol. It has been corroded and it is basically unrecognizable. Please recommend votes. Please collect. Please suggest investment. Lao Chao is on his knees to thank you. Chapter 14 Golden Desert Eagle. Guns are good things. In the end times, the most important supplies are food and weapons. Now there are some superhuman awakeners whose physiques are far superior to normal people, and Chang Ning has a low sense of security. It just so happens that this gun is something that can bring him some sense of security. He took the gun in his hand, mobilized his consciousness in his mind, released the power of the Sea of Stars, and the gun in his hand was instantly disassembled into parts, barrels, bolts, magazines, various springs and small parts. These rusty parts instantly became bright as new in the light of the Sea of Stars. Then, the brand new parts were automatically assembled together and turned into a brand new pistol, which returned to Chang Ning's hands. Desert Eagle. It's still gold plated. Chang Ning recognized the gun in his hand at once. The classic pistol produced by Magnum, the Desert Eagle. He is very familiar with this pistol. The Desert Eagle has appeared in many shooting games he has played before. Pull out the magazine, which is empty. When the lighting is shone on it, you can see a line of relief. .357 Magnum. Chang Ning knew that the Desert Eagle had 3 types of ammunition. Judging from this magazine, this was a .357 Desert Eagle. Continuing to flip through the things below, Chang Ning found 2 boxes of long corroded bullets, 2 muzzle silencers and a scope. Without hesitation, Chang Ning used his Xinghe ability to repair these things. The 2 boxes of bullets were exactly .357 Magnum bullets. However, the silencer and the scope cannot be adapted to the Desert Eagle. They are accessories for other types of firearms. Chang Ning filled the magazine of the Golden Desert Eagle with bullets and suddenly felt safe. Looking up, Yun Kai and Qian and Zunlu were still eating canned food, but Xiang Bao was gone. Did he take the opportunity to run away? Where did he go? Hey, that guy's gone. Stop eating. Chang Ning reminded. Go find him. Yun Kai and Qian continued to eat and didn't seem to want to find anyone at all. Zunlu had just finished a can of yellow peaches. He wiped his mouth with satisfaction, stood up and said, I didn't hear the door open. In fact, Chang Ning didn't hear the door open either. Although Chang Ning's attention was focused on repairing the Desert Eagle, his ears were always listening to the sounds around him. After all, it was an unfamiliar environment, and there was a person next to them who had tried to rob them. He would never take it lightly. But Xiang Bao really disappeared just like that. If he said that he moved quietly on tiptoe, it would be understandable. But the door of this room was just closed by him. The sound of opening the door was so loud, it would not be ignored by me. Is it a special skill of moving silently? Or was he abducted silently by something? Thinking of this dark basement suddenly became terrifying and gloomy. Chang Ning carefully shone the light in the room, and after making sure that there was no shadow where people could hide, he walked to the door. He raised his hand and gently pulled the door handle. Creaky. In the silent and dark basement, the sound of opening the door was so harsh and abrupt. Chang Ning was more certain that no one had opened the door just now. But the door had not been opened, so where did such a big person go? He stretched his head out, shone the light on the corridor, looked around, and there was silence. He closed the door again, and said to Zunlu and Yun Qian, "Do you know any way to make a person disappear without a sound?" Zunlu nodded. "A crazy ghost can do it." Crazy ghost? Grandpa said that crazy ghosts refer to those who have lost the ability to think like humans. They are more like beasts. But every crazy ghost is an awakened one. They can awaken many abilities that normal humans cannot awaken, such as the silent ghost, which can make a certain area silent. Silent ghost? It sounds like it is easy to make a sneak attack. Chang Ning thought. But don't worry, crazy ghosts are afraid of the sun. Generally speaking, they will not come out during the day except for the black moon. Zunlu added. They are afraid of the sun, so they don't go out during the day, but in this basement without light, they should have no obstacles to their activities. Chang Ning couldn't help but say. Zunlu thought about it carefully and nodded. You are right, there may be a ghost here. It should be, because he completely blocked the light from the outside after repairing the basement door, so the ghost hiding below began to move. So, if you want to solve the threat of the ghost, the most direct and simple way should be to open the basement door. Thinking of this, Chang Ning pulled up Yun Qian, who was still eating a can of 8 treasure porridge, and said to her, "Let's go, let's open the basement door." Yun Qian was obviously not very happy, but she still took the can and ate it, while reluctantly following Chang Ning. Chang Ning took out a cold flame from his pocket, broke it open, opened the door, and threw it to the outside staircase. The light of the light red cold flame illuminated the surrounding 360 degrees, compared with the lighting lamp in Chang Ning's hand that can only illuminate one direction. This thing is obviously more suitable for the current scene. He handed the lighting lamp to Zunlu, and then took Yun Qian, and walked slowly towards the stairs step by step in the silent corridor, and could hear a clear echo with every step. Chang Ning was concentrating all the way up, but nothing happened until he reached the door. He held the door handle, turned it gently, and pulled it outward. The door was easily opened, and the dazzling sunlight from outside shone in. It seemed to be almost noon now, and the sunlight was more intense than before. The whole basement began to brighten up under the scattered sunlight. Chang Ning breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, his eyes focused, and on the broken glass outside, there was a row of footprints going outward. A row of footprints in the opposite direction of the three of them. Was there this row of footprints when he came in just now? Chang Ning thought about it carefully, but couldn't think of an answer. There was no such row of footprints just now. Zunlu stood behind him at some point, and handed him the flashlight. "Are you sure?" Chang Ning said. "Everything we have seen with our eyes, when we think back, can't we recall every detail?" Zunlu asked back. "So, it's okay. Could this row of footprints be from Xiao? He was not attacked by the Lost Heart ghost, but quietly escaped from the three of them in some unknown way." Chang Ning couldn't tell what the truth was, but he encouraged himself secretly that in this strange era, everything must not be taken lightly, and no details should be missed. The various magical abilities encountered here are often beyond one's imagination. "Let's go get the books. There should be a few more there," Zunlu said again. Chang Ning nodded. This basement is only a dozen meters deep, and has basically been covered by the scattered sunlight. It can be explored a little. Besides, Zunlu has been here many times. If there are still ghosts with the door open, he should have been in danger a long time ago. There are 4 rooms in the basement, 2 on each side of the stairs. The bear leopard was hiding in room number 1 on the right, and Zunlu pointed to room number 3 on the left. When the 3 of them approached, Chang Ning found that there was a line of small words under the doorplate of room number 3, snow storage area of the ancient coin museum. The door was not locked. The 3 of them opened the door and went in. This room was much larger than room number 1. It was about 20 meters deep, and about 5 or 6 meters wide. The deepest part could not be reached by sunlight, and it was pitch black. At the door of the room was a piece of furniture similar to a desk. On the desk were several piles of corroded papers, which might be previous office documents. Behind the desk was a chair, and behind the chair was a bookcase. There were dozens of various books scattered in the bookcase. The door of the bookcase had been opened long ago. Zunlu walked around the desk skillfully and took out a few books and said, "Most of them are used up and can't be read, but there are a few. That can still be read. Chang Ning looked in the direction of the voice. The books that Zunlu took out were full of mold, and the text was no longer clear. It should be the fate of ordinary books stored in the cold and damp basement for hundreds of years. The remaining few well-preserved books were the books that Zunlu had taken back before, printed on special plastic paper. Chang Ning nodded and asked him to continue looking. He raised the flashlight and shone it into the room. There were 3 rows of shelves inside, 1 row on each of the left and right walls, and another row in the middle. There was a nameplate on the middle shelf, world coins from the 20th to 23rd century. He walked over and picked up a plastic wrapped gold coin from the first shelf and looked at it through the light of the flashlight. There was a portrait printed on the gold coin, and it looked very familiar. Who was it? Chang Ning couldn't remember it at once. Huh, isn't this you? Young Qian snatched the gold coin, looked up at Chang Ning, and compared it for a while. Please recommend and collect it. Leo Chow kowtows to all readers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. Am I printed on money? Generally speaking, only people who have great influence and contribution to a country can be printed on the coin. For example, the President of the United States, the Queen of Iron Country. Chang Ning took the gold coin back from young Qian and looked at it carefully. It seemed, indeed, his profile. Looking at the other side of the gold coin, there was a big Arabic numeral 1 in the middle, and the words United Government Hairstyle were written in 5 languages: Chinese, English, Russian, Spanish, and Arabic. Of course, Chang Ning only knows Chinese and English, but judging from the printing format, the other languages should have the same content. At the bottom is a year. 2192. Well, this is a gold coin from the end of the 22nd century. I don't know what its specific purchasing power is. My head portrait is printed on it. Chang Ning thought carefully about the possibilities this represents. The first possibility is that the Earth established a united government in the 22nd century, and one of the leaders who made great contributions was a Chinese, who looked a bit like himself. The second possibility is that someone knew that I would come to this place and deliberately made a fake gold coin to attract my attention and achieve his special purpose. The third possibility is that the black hole was repaired by me and I went back and became successful and really became a person who made great contributions to human history. All 3 possibilities are possible. If Chang Ning had not traveled through the black hole to the 27th century, he would have first ruled out the second possibility. But since I can travel through it, why can't others? If there is some disturbance to the world line during my travel, some people think that it is entirely possible to avoid some disturbance by making a gold coin with my own head and presenting it in front of me. As for the first and third possibilities, the possibility is even greater. The longer I have been in this era, the more Chang Ning feels that there is a lot of fog here, and there are more and more unknown and unsolved things. He feels that he needs to study hard. Putting the gold coin back into his pocket, Chang Ning continued to look inside. This shelf really has coins from various years and countries from the 19th to the 23rd century. Chang Ning quickly found the popular coins of the era in which he was born. There were familiar US dollars and British pounds. They were basically sealed in protective film and well protected after so many years. The left row was a coin storage rack from the 14th to 19th centuries, and the right row was a coin storage rack before the 14th century. The things on these 2 shelves were considered antiques in Chang Ning's era. Chang Ning also recognized that some of them were of very high value. Now that human civilization is destroyed, the cultural relics in the museum are also in danger. Should I uphold the principle of protecting cultural relics and take them back? Forget it. The black hole has not been repaired yet, and I don't know how long I will be trapped here. Now for me, survival is the most important thing. Improve my strength, enrich my weapons, increase my experience, and expand my network. What use are those things for me? Chang Ning thought so, reached out and picked up a double eagle version of the $20 gold coin. an Edward III florin coin, and a 3-hull cloth worth 1 teal from the Warring States period on several shelves, and stuffed them into several spare pockets of his camouflage uniform. After all, they are cultural relics. Looking at the remaining things, thinking that he did not bring a backpack this time, he could not help but sigh, and turned back to Zunlu and said, "Have you found them?" Zunlu nodded. "There are 4 books here to read. I took them all." "Then let's go to other rooms to have a look," Chang Ning suggested. Zunlu nodded without objection. Young Kai and Kian said, "Go and take those cans first." Chang Ning said, "We'll just take a look. We are not leaving now. Why take so many things?" As he said that, he walked out of the door of the coin storage room and came to the door of the opposite room. This is the storage room of the Chinese ancient painting and calligraphy fan painting, King Museum. The space inside is not small. It is estimated that there are at least thousands of paintings and calligraphy fans. There are several huge argon glass cabinets in the storage room, and the paintings and calligraphy works inside are well preserved. Chang Ning even saw a work marked as Tang Yin in a cabinet. This thing should be much more valuable than coins. But Chang Ning would never open the argon cabinet without authorization. He knew that once these paintings and calligraphy left the protection of inert gas, they would basically be weathered and decomposed quickly, which would cause immeasurable damage to art. With deep regret, Chang Ning came to room 2 diagonally opposite. The nameplate here reads Collection of Ancient Chinese Folk Instruments. After opening the door and going in, most of them are things used by ancient Chinese civilians, such as food boxes, dustpans, fish baskets, etc. There is no storage cabinet with inert gas. Except for a few lacquerware, most of the collections here are discolored and corroded. Chang Ning sighed. He had no way to deal with these. In addition to this basement, Chang Ning believes that there should be other underground storage spaces in the East Hall of the Shanghai Museum. In general, there should be a lot of crystallizations of human civilization preserved here. If the civilization of this world is restored one day, there should be a lot of things to show here to help people continue the previous civilization. However, the restoration of civilization needs to be quick. Otherwise, if we have to wait for thousands or tens of thousands of years to restore to the technological age, no matter how much civilization storage there is, it will turn into ashes, and the civilization of Chang Ning Zero will never be known by the next civilization. Just from the 3-no state of Yaosan, which is no text, no science, and no art, it is still a bit far from the civilization stage that can receive the storage in the museum. Are you done with the tour? Do you want to go? Chang Ning looked back and saw Yun Kai and Qian standing behind him with the big bag left by Xiang Bao. The bag was taller than Yun Kai and Qian. Although she was very relaxed to carry it, it was a bit funny visually. Chang Ning smiled and said, "Let's go back." The 3 of them left the basement and returned to the ground. When Chang Ning came out, he also closed the repaired iron door. I hope that the cultural relics inside can be preserved as much as possible. He looked up at the sun. It was noon, and the sun was shining. Hey, wait. Chang Ning suddenly remembered something very important. It is known that their current location is at the site of the East Hall of the Shanghai Museum. The location of the medicine town is at the site of the former Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, and the laboratory, where Chang Ning just came, is at the site of his previous residence. So, the straight line distance from here to the medicine town is about 6 kilometers, and the straight line distance from the laboratory is about 5 kilometers. Go southeast from here, and you can walk to the medicine town. Go east from here, and you can walk to the laboratory. If I continued to move forward during my first exploration, I would probably be able to walk to the museum site. Chang Ning's mind emerged with the map of Shanghai in 2025. After he found his first internship in Shanghai, he often went out to play. The way of travel is generally by bus or subway, so Chang Ning often studies maps and routes, especially the terrain and routes of a few kilometers near Zhangjiang Science Park, which he remembers very clearly. In other words, he can go back to the laboratory directly from here, and it is necessary to go back to the laboratory at this stage. The last time I came out, I wanted to explore the surroundings simply, and I came out too hastily, but the laboratory is too important to him at this stage. It is the foundation of everything, so he can't let anyone know for the time being. Thinking of this, Chang Ning said to Zunlu and Yun Qian, I have something else to do over there. You two should go back to Yao town first. Chapter 16 Return to the laboratory. Zunlu and Yun Qian are both autistic and under 10 years old. Chang Ning didn't have to spend much time persuading them to go back to Yao town first, and he separated from the two and headed towards the laboratory. He touched the desert eagle in his waist pocket and the machete hung on his waist before going out. Chang Ning felt that he should have the capital to shuttle through the forest during the day. He took out the compass, pointed it to the east, and walked out. He remained cautious all the way. He didn't encounter any danger on the road, but saw a few wild deer and pheasants in the forest. This is probably the main ration for modern survivors. After walking for less than 2 hours, Chang Ning found the machete cuts left by his first exploration on a century-old tree in the forest. It's really here. Chang Ning was very excited. Following the marks along the way, and with the guidance of the compass, he easily found the entrance to the laboratory at that time. There was no change here, exactly the same as when he left a few days ago. But Chang Ning was different. This time he came back, he was already an awakener. Can the experimental bench in the laboratory be repaired by his own ability? Can the black hole appear again? He quickly stepped over the concrete ruins and came to the air defense door under the hill. He took out the key to open the U-shaped lock and walked in. Let's take a look at the battery first. Walking to the battery pack that occupies a large area, Chang Ning looked at the small display screen. Battery 1%. The empty progress bar with a red frame remained the same. If the solar panel is good, it is impossible that it has not been charged for 2 days. The sun has been quite strong these 2 days. Chang Ning made a simple judgment and then mobilized the power of the stars in his mind and enveloped the battery. Nothing happened. This proves that the battery is good and the problem should be with the solar charging panel or the transmission cable. Another part of the power was released to the cable next to the battery. This time the power was obviously consumed and the shape of the cable also changed. The outer insulating rubber sheath was repaired as new, and all the pits and corrosion marks on it were eliminated. Before he went out to see the solar panels, a line of words appeared on the display screen of the battery pack. Charging. Power 1%. Charging, which means that only the cable has a problem, and it has been repaired now. Chang Ning was very happy to have solved the problem, and opened the door of the laboratory again. This time, he had to repair the experimental table that Chang Ning could not understand at all. Chang Ning, who had already had many repair experiences, was very familiar with it. He mobilized the power of the stars in his mind and sent it along his finger to the experimental table. The sea of stars churned, and the starlight was brighter than any time before. According to the existing experience, this was a signal that his superpowers began to work. Although the experimental table still did not change, Chang Ning knew that his ability should be able to repair it. Increase the energy output. The sea of stars boiled more violently. The experimental table still did not change. What's going on? Chang Ning gritted his teeth and increased the energy output again. His brain had already shown some symptoms of discomfort, and a tingling feeling gradually came over him. Still not working. Chang Ning was sweating profusely and collapsed on the ground. He clearly felt that his ability was not enough to repair this machine. Maybe this machine is too complicated, or maybe some special materials are needed in the process of repairing this machine, and with his current level, he cannot use his superpowers to make such materials. In short, his level is not enough. Chang Ning remembered the awakening levels that Zhen Yang introduced to him: primary, advanced, master, grandmaster, and extraordinary. What level of ability is he now? He couldn't say it. However, if his ability is improved, is there hope to repair this experimental machine? He sat on the ground for a while, and after recovering some physical strength, he slowly stood up. Although the repair failed this time, he was more confident that his ability could work on this machine. Recalling the gold coin with his portrait printed on it that he got in the underground storage room of the Shanghai Museum, Chang Ning felt that he could definitely return to the 21st century. After a rest, he remembered that there was another room in this laboratory, the room across the hall, which he had not opened before. He walked through the hall and walked to the door of that room. It was still locked. but now he has a lock-picking weapon. Come out. Golden Desert Eagle. Chang Ning opened the gun safety, and from a distance of about 5 meters, he aimed at the door lock through the 3-point straight line of the crochets, and fired a shot. Bang. I had heard that the Desert Eagle had amazing recoil, but Chang Ning, who fired a gun for the first time, was still shocked by the recoil. Fortunately, the door lock had been broken, so Chang Ning stepped forward to open the door and walked in. This room is about the same size as the laboratory room. There are also 2 machines in it. One is a computer, not a mini computer in the laboratory, but a personal computer microcomputer. The other machine is much larger than the laboratory bench in the laboratory, and more than half of the entire room is occupied by this thing. This is a machine with countless drawers, which looks like it is used to store something. If you want to know what is stored here, the easiest way is to open the computer and check it out. Chang Ning did the same. He skillfully opened the microcomputer in this room, and waited for a dozen seconds. The computer system was loaded. All the files were also modified before 2331. No one should have come here again after the apocalypse. There are even fewer things in this computer. In addition to the necessary computer system, there is only one program, the Life Seed Bank Management Program. Life Seed Bank? Chang Ning looked back at the huge machine full of drawers. This is actually a life seed bank. Could it be that someone had predicted the disaster before the end of the world and built a life seed bank in advance? He shook his head again. According to the time black hole in the laboratory next door, this seed bank may just be a container for bringing specific life to unknown times. Otherwise, if the people in the laboratory knew the end of the world, how could they not avoid it in advance? You know, there is a settlement of survivors not far away outside, proving that survival is not impossible. If the people in the laboratory really knew the end of the world, then what he came to now must be a laboratory that is still in operation and maintained by living people. Chang Ning clicked on the Life Seed Bank Management Program, and the program interface clearly marked what was stored in each drawer. Improved wheat seeds, hybrid rice seeds, high-yield corn seeds, fertilized eggs of wild chickens, fertilized eggs of domestic ducks. There is a modern agriculture stored in it. If the world is now a state where technology has returned to primitive society, then the value of this seed bank is huge. Apart from anything else, once the crops here are promoted, they can feed more people, and the surviving population may explode directly. However, after nearly 300 years, are the seeds here still active? Chang Ning opened one of the drawers storing improved wheat seeds with some trembling. Thank you for the reward from Hansang Kubei. The new author was very excited to receive the reward for the first time. Liu Xiao thanked me on his knees. Chapter 17 Life Seed Bank. The Life Seed Bank is restarting. You need to run the test program first. Please wait. This is. Chang Ning understood that this Life Seed Bank must have been closed before due to the power problem in the laboratory. He didn't know how long it had been closed. Can the seeds and embryos stored in it remain active without the storage environment of the seed bank machine? He was very worried. But there was no point in worrying. Chang Ning could only stare at the progress bar of the test program on the screen. 1%, 10%. After a few minutes, the test program was completed, and the results were displayed on the screen. Inactivated projects, fertilized eggs of wild chickens, fertilized eggs of domestic ducks. All poultry and livestock embryos have been inactivated. Semi-inactivated projects, improved wheat seeds, hybrid rice seeds, high-yield corn seeds. All crops are in a semi-inactivated state, that is, can they still be used after rescue? There is a click to expand button under the semi-inactivated project. Chang Ning clicked it, and it listed the inactivation of each variety in detail. Improved wheat seeds, inactivation rate 47%. Hybrid rice seeds, inactivation rate 31%. It feels acceptable. Although the inactivation rate is very high when sowing, just increase the sowing density appropriately. There are hundreds of drawers here, of which there are more than 20 drawers loaded with different types of wheat and rice seeds. Each drawer stores 10 kilograms. In other words, the wheat and rice seeds stored here add up to more than 200 kilograms. These two are the most important agricultural crops, and more than 200 kilograms is a large stock. After operating on the computer, a drawer storing hybrid rice seeds was opened. Chang Ning walked over carefully and put his hand into the pile of rice seeds. Ah, this familiar feeling. He used to do this in the grain area of the supermarket. It felt very refreshing to put his hand into the pile of grains with uniform grains. Now that he has grain seeds, it is definitely unrealistic to plant them by himself. First of all, he may not be able to do so much farm work by himself. Secondly, the land near this laboratory has not been reclaimed, so it is impossible to plant directly. Thirdly, if there are not enough people to take care of it, the safety of food is also a problem. Even if no one else comes to rob, there are so many wild beasts and birds now, and it is hard to guarantee that there will not be people who come to steal food. Therefore, the best option seems to be to hand it over to the people of Yaosan and let them grow food. But if the people of Yaosan are allowed to grow food, there are two problems. The first problem is that it seems that they will definitely not do farm work, and they have to be taught. The second problem is how to explain to them the source of these grain seeds. In fact, the first problem is easier to solve. When Chang Ning came here, he also brought his laptop. This computer stores some PDF versions of magic books. It was also an accident. When Chang Ning was still studying the black hole, one day he saw a collection of all local methods of manufacturing from the up host of a certain video website. It was a PDF collection of about 100 books, and Chang Ning downloaded them all. It includes homemade pesticides, homemade fertilizers, homemade small generators, homemade steel making, homemade coal selection, basic knowledge of agriculture and many other local manufacturing methods involving industrial and agricultural manufacturing, as well as military reconnaissance manual, militia cadre manual, how to shoot planes, and other basic military materials. In this era after the disaster, when technology has been lost, most of them are actually quite useful. Chang Ning decided to pick some agricultural production methods suitable for Yaosan and teach them. If he really didn't have time, there was a literate Zunlu in Yaosan, and he could also pass on these knowledge to other townspeople. As for the second question, Chang Ning thought for a while, and decided to pretend to be a member of a large mobile caravan. Because he was saved by Zunlu, he was grateful to the townspeople of Yaosan, and sent grain seeds and planting techniques. When Chang Ning went to Yaosan for the first time, he did not reveal his identity. As for this mobile caravan, it must be mobile, and ordinary people may not be able to find it. It is reasonable that the caravan carries a lot of supplies, isn't it? He turned back to the laboratory room, vacated an 80-liter bag, and then opened 2 drawers of hybrid rice seeds in the biological seed bank. 20 kilograms of seeds, in theory, can be sown on 20 acres of land. But combined with the inactivation rate, it can only be planted on a little more than 10 acres. Chang Ning recalled the open space within the walls of Yaosan, and felt that 10 acres should be enough. Let them plant first, and see the effect. Don't use up all the seeds at once. If something unexpected happens, it will be too late. Then, he connected his laptop and mobile phone to the small solar panel he brought from 2025. Both the computer and the mobile phone can be turned on, and no damage was caused during the crossing. As expected, no signal was found after turning on. Mobile phones in this era have become MP3s that can only be used to listen to music. Computers can also be used standalone. He found the folder where the collection of everything made by local methods was stored, picked up a few books related to rice planting, and read them. After reading through them, it was almost dark. Chang Ning thought about it, checked his entire computer, classified all the content that might expose his crossing from 2025, cut them into a USB flash drive, and hid the USB flash drive in a bag deep in a pile of materials in the laboratory. The remaining content in the computer, even if there are many files before 2025, has nothing to do with Chang Ning, and there is no content that can directly expose Chang Ning's personal information. Considering that this computer is likely to be used by Zunlu, and may even be used by other people in the future, this is the safest way. After finishing the computer, Chang Ning had dinner again. Now he still has more than 2.5 months of food and water reserves, and this is still under sufficient supply. Now you can actually get a certain amount of food and water outside, and Chang Ning feels that his reserves can be used for half a year or even a year. If you leave for Yaosun tomorrow, you should bring some rations. The black moon has just passed, and there are not many food reserves in Yaosun. Although a large land shark has just been hunted, there are hundreds of people in Yaosun, and it is estimated that it will not last long. The most important thing is that Yaosun's current top combat force, the master fighter Little Lali Young Kian, seems to be a foodie. If I have enough food, I should be able to get along with her in a short time and become close friends. In this way, my safety in this world will be greatly improved. Thinking of this, he put 10 days of compressed biscuits, energy bars, and some chocolates and candies in his large travel bag. After packing up everything, Chang Ning took out the soft down sleeping bag, had a good sleep, and prepared to set off tomorrow to go to Yao town to start farming. Thanks to the book friend 2018081165234436 for the 2000 reward. Thanks to the kitten Momo for the 5000 reward. Bo. Chapter 18, The Lost Ghost. The next day, Chang Ning woke up very early because he went to bed early at night. The air defense door of the laboratory had been locked by him. When he woke up, the whole laboratory was dark. He took out a flashlight and shone it on his wrist. The watch showed that it was only 4:30. It should not be dawn yet. Chang Ning got up, washed up simply, and decided to wait until dawn before leaving. When he came to the room of the laboratory, he remembered that he had seen a monitoring program on the computer here last time. Turning on the computer, there was no low battery prompt this time. After repairing the battery yesterday, in addition to the power consumption of the seed bank, it also charged nearly 5% of the power, so it was still possible to run the computer in the laboratory for a while. Following the path in memory, a monitoring program was indeed found. Clicking on the program, the monitoring screens of the 4 cameras appeared on the display screen, and they could all be used normally. 2 monitoring screens were indoors, one in the laboratory, and one in the seed bank. Chang Ning could see his figure also appearing on the monitoring of the laboratory. The other 2 monitoring screens were outdoors, that is, at the entrance air defense door, on the left and right sides, one on each side. Through the monitoring program, the camera can also be rotated to adjust to other angles. Seeing the camera footage outside, Chang Ning felt that, if he encountered any danger, hiding here would be a good choice. At least he could see the situation outside and not be blinded. Wait, what is that? Chang Ning's hair stood up, and the scene in front of him frightened him extremely. Just in front of the laboratory gate, at the junction of the dense forest and the ruins of the outer building, under the blue-black night, a humanoid creature slowly walked out. The monster was estimated to be nearly 3 meters tall, and its outline was almost the same as that of a human. But its walking posture was completely different from that of a normal person. It was extremely weird, swaying, and its 2 arms hung down at its sides, as if it had no strength. Its legs were slightly bent, with its knees facing outward. Every step was taken with its legs wide open, and its upper body hardly moved. It was not wearing clothes, and its whole body was covered with short brown-black hair. It was impossible to tell whether it was male or female from its appearance. The monster took 3 or 4 steps forward and came to the outside of the laboratory's air defense door. It crossed a distance of nearly 20 meters in 3 or 4 steps, and one step was more than 5 meters. But it did not seem to be jumping forward. Visually, it was walking normally step by step. After it arrived at the door of the laboratory's air defense, it lowered its head, as if looking for something, and seemed to be sniffing something everywhere. Then it suddenly looked up and looked at a camera at the door. It had no body hair on its face, nor eyebrows and hair like human hair. Its entire face was pale, its facial features were very flat, and its nose only had 2 nostrils, and no lips. Its 2 blood-red eyeballs just stared at the camera, and after about 10 seconds, the picture in the camera did not change at all. When Chang Ning was wondering if the camera was broken, the monster suddenly grinned, and Chang Ning was so scared that he almost fell off the chair. What the hell is this? Is it the legendary lost ghost? Zunlu told him that lost ghosts also have various awakening abilities and different looks, but this one is too scary. After the monster smiled, it froze there, staring at the camera motionlessly. It and Chang Ning just stared at each other through the camera and the screen, and the scene was very weird. What does it want to do? Exclamation mark. After more than 10 minutes, the black in the sky gradually became less, and the blue gradually increased. Through the camera, wisps of white clouds can be seen gradually emerging from the black curtain. The monster looked up at the sky, then turned back, and smiled at the camera, turned around and walked away. After taking 4 or 5 steps, its figure had already drilled into the woods and disappeared. It was not until the sky was completely bright that Chang Ning sat up from the chair in front of the computer and found that he was sweating coldly. He swore that he would never go out at night in this era, although he had never done so before. After checking the machete and the golden desert eagle on his body, he took a military telescope, slowly opened the civil air defense gate and walked out. The outside still looked peaceful and peaceful. Just looking at the scenery here, who would have thought that such a monster would appear just now? Chang Ning slowly moved his feet, climbed to the top of the hill along the last route, and carefully observed a circle of 360 degrees with a telescope. There was no abnormal picture, but in the woods about 1 kilometer away from here, a figure that looked like a goat was found. After observing 360 degrees again, he breathed a sigh of relief. Lost heart ghosts usually only appear at night and in the black moon, and it seems that this is true. Chang Ning, who originally wanted to leave for Xiao town today, changed his mind. He planned to spend another night here to see if the lost heart ghost would appear again. If it appears again, it means that its lair is very close to here, so the role of this laboratory as the last base will be discounted. Returning to the laboratory base and closing the civil air defense door, he came to the laboratory room, sat in front of the computer and thought for a while, and decided to carefully search for other valuable clues in this computer. In addition to the document the last words found last time, only the server control program and the laboratory bench operation program in the computer are the most noteworthy. Especially the laboratory bench operation program. Opening it will make it easier to crack the secret of this laboratory bench. What is the password? Chang Ning thought about it. Now there is too little information, and there are only a few passwords. To try 23,310,721. This is the day when Richard wrote the last words. Enter. The password is wrong. 26,250,519. This is the day when I passed through the black hole and the black hole really played a role. Enter. The password is wrong. Licha. This is a pinyin of the name of Licha, the author of the last words. Enter. Wrong password. 20,250,519. This is the day of another timeline, before I traveled through time. Enter. Wrong password. None of them are right. What is it? 20,250,312. This is the day when the black hole first appeared in my room. Could it be this? Chang Ning entered it tentatively. The password is correct, and the program is starting. It's actually right. 20,250,312. Could this be the coordinates of that golden age mentioned in Leech as the last words document? In this way, the amount of information is a bit large. What happened after 2025? What made Licha from 2331 feel that after 2025, it was no longer a golden age? The program has been started and is self-checking. Or is it that after 2025, another generation has passed before it comes to the end of Licha's so-called golden age? Then this should be the 22nd century. It seems that the era I live in is considered by future generations to be the golden age of human civilization. The program self-check is complete. Chang Ning stared at the computer monitor. After the program self-checked, an operation interface appeared. This interface is very complicated, containing various parameter adjustments that Chang Ning could not understand. But there is one most conspicuous place, which Chang Ning can still understand. Docking target time, March 12, 2025. It is indeed the day when the black hole appears in his room. In that case, if I repair this machine and still use this time to open the black hole, will I meet my previous self? This is very weird. There is a very famous grandmother paradox in the matter of crossing, which means that if a person travels back to the time before he was born and kills his grandmother before he got married, will this traveler still exist? If this machine can set the time coordinates at will, it seems that the problem is a bit big. Chang Ning continued to scan the software operation interface and found an option of machine self-check in the menu document. When this option is activated, a self-check progress bar appears. After more than 10 seconds, the progress bar finished reading, and a dialog box popped up. Self-check completed. The machine is operating normally. Chang Ning's eyes condensed. How could this be possible? Please collect and recommend. Chapter 19 starting again. Self-check completed. The machine is running normally. How could it be? Chang Ning's palms trembled, and he gently moved the mouse to the start button at the bottom of the program interface and clicked it. Starting. Please wait. The experimental table next to him started to operate on its own, and several mechanical arms stretched out and operated on the smooth wall. Suddenly, several beep beep alarms sounded. Insufficient X substance detected. Startup failed. Chang Ning nodded. This was in line with his judgment. He had used his awakening ability to try to repair the black hole experimental table before, but the repair failed. During the repair process, he felt that there was a lack of some key substance in the machine, and his ability could not create it out of thin air. Now it seems that this is indeed the case. X substance, what could it be? Suddenly Chang Ning thought of another possibility. Is this X substance a must for time travel, and is it a consumable? Since the black hole opened on March 12th and closed on May 19th, it has been consuming X substance until it was consumed after he traveled through it? If that's the case, Chang Ning looked at the coins he had taken out of the Shanghai Museum. If that was the case, if he hadn't done so many cautious experiments, but had rushed in head first, would he have had more than 2 months to travel back and forth? Then many things from this era could be brought to his original era. His life there would be. Chang Ning shook his head. It might be fun to rush in, but it was more likely that he would die faster. There was no point in thinking about this now. The most important thing was to continue exploring in this era and see if he could find some new X substances. After confirming that the black hole experimental table really couldn't be used anymore, he searched for storage space on the computer again, but didn't find any other valuable clues. It was still early, and Chang Ning sorted out the supplies he brought from 2025, piled them neatly in the hall, and left only a down sleeping bag and a few necessities in the laboratory room. He planned to use this as a bedroom. When moving the boxes and travel bags away, Chang Ning found a piece of paper on the floor of the laboratory, which was pressed by a box, so he had never noticed it. Picking it up and holding it in his hand, it turned out to be a business card. Xiao, director of the research department of Tengda Group's Shanghai Research Institute, phone number XXXXXX, address, number 196, Gay Oaks in 3rd Road, Zhangjiang Science Park, East New District, Shanghai. Home address, room 905, 168th floor, Chang'an Building, Chang'an District, Shanghai. This is Li Cha's business card. Li Cha wrote in the last words that he returned to his home in the city to spend the last few days with his family. So his destination is the home address on this business card. Chang'an Building. Chang Ning had never heard of this building before 2025. It should be a new building, built in a certain era, after he traveled through time. Li Cha lives on the 168th floor. As far as Chang Ning knows, the tallest building in Shanghai, before he traveled through time, the Shanghai Center building, only had 118 floors. Li Cha's residence is 50 floors higher than the highest floor of the Shanghai Center building, so it must be a super skyscraper. There can't be too many of these super skyscrapers, and the day Chang Ning traveled through time, he happened to see a surviving super skyscraper. That A-shaped building. The building is still preserved and has not collapsed. In other words, if it is really the original Chang'an building, Chang Ning may find Richard's residence in it and get more information. This discovery made Chang Ning very excited. But after he packed up his supplies, he still learned agricultural knowledge on his laptop for a while. After all, the building is far away from here. It is better for him to go to Yao town to grow rice first. After the agriculture there starts, his strength will be improved, or there will be more partners to go with him, and then consider exploring the A-shaped building. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, Chang Ning washed up and went to bed. He wanted to see if the night ghost from yesterday would come again at night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Chang Ning woke up with the ringing of the alarm clock. He simply washed up, turned on the monitoring program of the laboratory computer, and checked the external camera. The monster came here at more than 4 o'clock yesterday. Chang Ning first quickly dragged and checked the video from dusk to 3 o'clock. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he squatted next to the monitor and stared quietly. Until dawn, the monster did not appear, so the probability that its nest is nearby has decreased slightly. But we still can't take it lightly. Now the solar panels of the base have been repaired. With continuous charging, the base will not lack power for the time being. After setting the monitoring program to be on 24 hours a day and automatically storing the video, Chang Ning put on the backpack he had prepared yesterday and hung the small solar panel he brought from 2025 on the side of the backpack and walked out of the civil air defense gate. Still first climbed up the hillside and used a military telescope to observe the situation at 360 degrees. There was nothing unusual around, and the A-shaped skyscraper still stood in the west. Chang Ning stared at the building for a long time. Half an hour later, Chang Ning slowly walked down the hillside, according to the map in his mind, and compared with the compass, he went southwest 60 degrees. Along the way, he left marks on the trees with a machete every few dozen meters, and Chang Ning walked slowly forward in the forest at his own pace. Chang Ning, who already had some experience walking in the Doomsday Forest, was much calmer at this time. The trees were lush, the flowers and plants were lush under the trees, the birds were singing in the forest, and the sun was spotted. If it weren't for the ruins of buildings and other man-made objects that have mostly decayed, this would definitely be a good place for a picnic. The location of the medicine town is on the site of the former Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, just over 3 kilometers away from the laboratory base. At Chang Ning's current walking speed, it can be reached in less than an hour. After walking for half an hour, Chang Ning suddenly felt a disturbance in the air around him, and a force that he was quite familiar with appeared around him. Is this the power of the Star Sea? Is there an awakened person using his ability nearby? Chang Ning stopped and looked around carefully. The forest was still quiet, and the sun was shining through the leaves, a picture of peace and tranquility. He carefully raised his feet and wanted to check forward. What's going on? Chang Ning couldn't lift his feet. He was like being cast into a fixed body spell and could only stand in place and couldn't move. Chang Ning immediately threw his backpack on the ground vigilantly, clenched the machete in his right hand, put the compass in his left hand back into his pocket, and took out the golden desert eagle. "Little guy, what's in your bag?" A gloomy and weird voice came from behind. Chang Ning turned his head. As his feet could not move, he twisted his upper body as much as possible, and his posture was very awkward. He didn't see anyone. "Don't be afraid. I'm just asking casually. If you don't want to answer, forget it." Chang Ning continued to twist his body, but his feet could not move, which really limited his flexibility. The voice moved calmly behind him as his body twisted, always avoiding Chang Ning's gaze. "Don't you want to tell me? I've seen it. There is no one else around, and you don't have long-range weapons such as bows and crossbows. So you can only listen to me, right? Who are you?" Chang Ning couldn't help but shouted. "You don't need to care who I am. Just know that you will be fixed here for a day and a night. During this period, I will not approach you or attack you. I will go back to the safe house in a while, and come to see you tomorrow morning if you are not killed by the crazy ghost at night." Ha 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 ha. The voice laughed wantonly, not hiding its malice at all. Chang Ning had seen a crazy ghost in the wild at night in the surveillance. It was haunting nearby. Sweat flowed down Chang Ning's forehead, and he thought quickly in his heart. The enemy should also be an awakener, someone from Xingmen or Chenmen, with the ability to freeze the body, or one of his abilities must be to immobilize the feet. If such an enemy is discovered early, it may not be difficult to deal with, but once attacked by the opponent, it is difficult to break free. He is very cunning. Even though he has controlled me, he did not show up or approach me. Instead, he wanted to use the lost heart ghost to kill me, and then come to touch the body. His target should be my backpack. This backpack is too conspicuous, bulging. In the end times, others can tell at a glance that there are good things hidden inside. What should I do? Chapter 20 Sir, times have changed. Then I'll leave first. Hehe, see you tomorrow. The strange voice sounded behind Chang Ning again, hoarse and harsh, getting farther and farther away, and the man was leaving Chang Ning. He couldn't let him go like this, otherwise he probably wouldn't make it through the night. Although he had never had a direct conflict with the insane ghost, Chang Ning felt from the bottom of his heart when he thought of the surveillance footage from the night before. He didn't want to spend the night alone in the wild. He quickly shouted, "Wait. Do you know what's in my bag?" "Oh. What is it?" "Forget it. You'll know tomorrow, and I won't ask." The voice continued to go away. "My bag is full of food. If you leave now, I'll pour out all the food. I don't know if the insane ghost will eat the food. Even if the insane ghost doesn't eat it, there are quite a lot of birds in this forest. I don't know how much it can eat in one night." As he said that, Chang Ning picked up the bag thrown on the ground, unzipped it, reached out and grabbed a handful of rice seeds, and scattered them far away. Fortunately, the rice seeds were not packed separately when they were packed, otherwise it would be quite troublesome to encounter such a situation. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Sure enough, some birds fluttered their wings, flew down from the trees, and began to peck at the seeds. The malicious voice behind Chang Ning did not answer, and he could not tell whether the man had left or was silent. But he did not dare to stop his actions, and continued to grab a handful of rice seeds, and threw them in another direction, attracting another group of birds to peck at them. After throwing out more than a dozen handfuls of rice seeds, Chang Ning suddenly swung the backpack in his hand, and threw it more than 20 meters away. The open backpack was thrown upside down on the ground, and the rice seeds were scattered all over the ground, forming a small rice hill. It can be thrown more than 20 meters away. It seems that my strength has increased. Before this era, Chang Ning could throw this 40 to 50 kilogram bag for more than 10 meters. After throwing the backpack out, Chang Ning threw the watermelon knife on the ground, squatted down, and looked at the rice hill from a distance, as if waiting for more birds and beasts to come and eat. After squatting for 10 minutes, a shadow quickly circled around from behind Chang Ning and ran to where the backpack was. I can't help it. Chang Ning tensed his mind, handed the desert eagle in his left hand to his right hand, and squatted to aim at the shadow in front of him. The shadow was wearing a black hooded coarse linen clothes. The style was very long, and after the hat was put on, his face could not be seen at all. The shadow quickly ran to the place where the backpack landed, and picked up the backpack with one hand. There should be about half of the rice seeds left in it that had not been scattered. He ignored the rice hills on the ground, shook the backpack, and turned sideways to go back to Chang Ning's back again. Bang! The gun fired. Although he aimed for a long time, 20 meters was not too far, but the bullet still did not hit the man's chest according to the position Chang Ning aimed. Fortunately, although it was a little off, it also hit the man's thigh. He screamed and fell to the ground. There was an obvious through and through laceration on his thigh, and blood gushed out. "What's that in your hand?" "It's more powerful than a hunting crossbow." The man had no knowledge of pistols. After carefully observing Chang Ning for a long time, he thought that Chang Ning should not have any means of long-range attack, so he ran to the backpack and wanted to quickly rescue the remaining rations. But this shot taught him a lesson. He struggled to stand up, but the wound caused by the .357 bullet of the Desert Eagle was not comparable to that of an ordinary pistol. Bang! Another gunshot rang out, this time hitting the chest below the neck directly. The man leaned back and fell to the ground, motionless. After a while, Chang Ning felt numbness in his feet and his calves, and soul slowly regained control. He tried to lift his legs and took a step without any hindrance. Chang Ning turned around and observed the surroundings. He did not find anyone else or anything unusual, so he raised the pistol and slowly approached the hooded corpse. When he was 5 or 6 meters away from the corpse, Chang Ning shot at the hood again and shot in the head. There was still no reaction. He should be dead. Chang Ning slowly moved over, stretched out his hand to pull open the hood, and a strange wooden face appeared inside. 2 pale eyes and a bright red lip were painted on the wooden face, with a dull expression and extremely weird. Chang Ning was so scared that he stood up quickly and looked around nervously. Is this a puppet? Where is the real controller hiding? If the puppet is so hideous, how hideous will the controller be? It's terrible to be an enemy of such a person. No. Chang Ning endured the discomfort and squatted again. This time he directly pulled open the burlap clothes on the man, revealing a short corpse. This seems to be a dwarf. In order to disguise the height of a normal person, he added a wooden fake head on his head, hidden in the hood, and his whole person was hidden in the robe. Chang Ning's second shot just now seemed to hit him above the chest, but it actually hit his head. The dwarf was shot in the head and the leg, and he has been dead for a long time. Chang Ning breathed a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. After taking a break for 5 or 6 minutes, he struggled to sit up again, took off the engineer shovel from his backpack, and dug a hole in the ground. It didn't take long to dig the more than 1 meter deep hole, and Chang Ning threw the dwarf's body into it. Just when he was about to fill the soil, Chang Ning thought of something, so he jumped into the hole and touched the dwarf's body, but didn't find anything valuable that could prove his identity. He seemed to have said that there was a safe house just now. Did he put all the things in the safe house? There was no trophy, which made Chang Ning a little annoyed. However, thinking that this was an awakened person, Chang Ning thought, is there anything else on this person that is more valuable? Chang Ning took the machete, endured the feeling of his stomach churning, and gently cut open the dwarf's chest. Unlike what he expected, the dwarf's thymus was a normal human thymus, without any signs of mutation, and it was not like the land shark thymus transplanted by Xiao, which was shining with metallic light. Did he guess wrong? Chang Ning didn't dare to delay any longer. He jumped up to bury the soil, stepped on it a few more times, cleaned up the traces around, and then hurriedly packed the spilled rice seeds, put on his backpack, and continued to walk towards the medicine town. After an accident, the rice seeds lost about 2 or 3 kilograms, but this was within an acceptable range. Chang Ning quickened his pace, and after more than 10 minutes, he saw the gate of the medicine town from a distance. After a few minutes, Chang Ning, who was panting, sat in the Zun family's house, threw down his backpack, and drank the water handed to him by Zun Yang. After gulping down 2 large bowls, he wiped his mouth, and breathed a sigh of relief. Why do I feel like you always get into trouble every time you come to the medicine town? Zun Yang took the bowl handed over by Chang Ning and complained. Before Chang Ning could speak, Zun Lu came over and asked Chang Ning, if the complex numbers AI is equal to -1 plus AI, then what is the imaginary part of the complex numbers N? Chang Ning. Zun Lu handed him a book. Chang Ning had an impression of the book. It was one of the 3 books Zun Lu found in the basement of the Shanghai Museum 2 days ago. He took it and looked at the cover. The title of the book was 3-Year College Entrance Examination and 5-Year Simulation, Mathematics, 2331 Latest Edition. Chang Ning. Zun Lu looked at the ceiling with a frown, obviously thinking carefully about the meaning of the sentence he just read. Zun Yang shook his head and sighed. I don't know what happened. The day before yesterday, this kid brought back a book from outside. He has been like a possessed person these past 2 days. Chang Ning grinned. First of all, those letters are not Pinyin, but English. It's pronounced as Z, not Z. Secondly, I don't know how to solve this problem, but I did bring something that can help you. As he said that, he took out his laptop from the interlayer of his backpack, opened it, found a PDF file, Youth Self-Study Series, Algebra, and then handed the notebook to Zun Lu. Here, look at this. Chapter 21, Start Farming. After sending Zun Lu away with the self-study algebra textbook on the laptop, Chang Ning turned around and showed Zun Yang the rice seeds and told him how to grow rice. Is this the rice seed? Zun Yang reached deep into Chang Ning's backpack full of rice grains, and a satisfied expression appeared on his wrinkled old face. Chang Ning nodded. If the town can farm, the source of food will become very stable, and there will be fewer cases of hunger. Zun Yang sighed. In fact, there was a story about growing food in the legend a long time ago. In my grandfather's time, there were not many prey for a few years, and some people starved to death. They also considered farming for food, but they never found suitable seeds. After so many years, many people don't even know what farming is. Don't worry, I have enough seeds and perfect planting techniques. Yaosan only needs suitable fields and enough manpower, and it will be able to grow crops. Then, I wonder what our Yaosan will have to pay. Look at what you said. My life was saved by Zun Lu, and you have helped me a lot. Didn't you accept me on behalf of Yaosan before? I'm also a member of the town. When the time comes, I can grow food and have something to eat. Chen Yang stared at the bag of rice seeds, his expression changing. After a while, he asked, I shouldn't ask, but this matter is too big, and the favor is too big. Chang Ning, where are you from? Who provided these seeds? Chang Ning understood his concerns. In this era, when food is the most scarce resource, having a piece of land with stable output is of strategic significance. So he explained to Chen Yang the idea of a large mobile caravan he had thought of before, and described the mobile caravan as rich and friendly as possible. Finally, he said, the caravan is stationed not far from here, but it may leave for other places at any time. However, I will stay in Xiao town during this period of time and build the farmland with everyone. Chen Yang stared at him for a while, and it was hard to tell from the expression on his face whether he believed it or not, but he nodded and said, then we won't refuse. In short, you are not only a member recognized by Xiao town, but also one of the most important people in Xiao town. All the authority of Xiao town is open to you, and you can transfer people in Xiao town at will. Chang Ning smiled and said, that's great, I will be disrespectful to refuse. By the way, there is another question. He remembered that he tried to repair the black hole experimental table, but it could not be repaired successfully because of the lack of X substance. At that time, he considered that after his ability was upgraded, could he create some X substance out of thin air to make the experimental table work normally? For this kind of problem involving awakeners, the best person Chang Ning could find to answer was the old man Chen Yang. What questions are you asking? Chen Yang said seriously. That is, how to cultivate and improve the abilities of awakeners. How can one advance to the next level? Chen Yang looked at Chang Ning in astonishment for a while before saying, generally speaking, the abilities of awakeners cannot be advanced. The reason why awakeners are called awakeners, rather than practitioners or people with special abilities, is because the awakening process is a basis for acquiring abilities. After awakening, people may occasionally advance to the next level under extreme pressure and in special circumstances of near death, but these are very rare cases rumored by the outside world. There has never been such a person in the history of the entire Yaosan. Otherwise, why do you think Yun Qian is a master level awakener at the age of 9? She is not a practitioner at all. She is a master directly after awakening. Awakening depends on talent. No matter how hard you work, you can't advance. This world doesn't seem to conform to the law of God rewards hard work. If there is a very small chance of advancement under extreme pressure and near death, then if you want to repair the experimental table and get X substance, don't count on your awakening ability. You should rely on other means. Chang Ning was a little depressed, but still nodded. Okay, thank you, Mayor. I have no other questions. Let's start farming as soon as possible. We can also plant a season of medium season rice this season, and we can harvest the first batch of grain before October. Chen Yang said, okay, I will inform the whole town about this matter during lunch. After that, he went out, and it seemed that he should go to communicate with the senior officials in the town first. Chang Ning stayed in the Zun family's house, instructing Zun Lu how to use a laptop to view documents, and pointed him to several documents related to agricultural planting. After all, Chang Ning still had to leave Yao town. Whether he went to the A-shaped tower to find Richard's remains, or went to other places to look for X substance, he felt that he could not stay in Yao town for long. Therefore, it is very important to cultivate a farming all-rounder. In a blink of an eye, it was lunchtime, and several Suona sounds were heard in the town square, which was a signal for the town to have dinner. The entire Yao town is actually very poor, and everyone lives below the poverty line, so there is no concept of private property or family cooking here. All food is hunted and gathered by the town, and cooked by the town. When Chang Ning and Zun Lu walked out of the Zun family's house and came to the town square, the big pot had been set up, and a pot of broth was boiling in it. Of course, there was not much meat. There were some wild fruits on a small wooden table next to the big pot, which were green in color. Chang Ning felt that his teeth were about to fall out when he saw it. This is an ordinary day in Yao town. If there were no large prey like land sharks, most townspeople would only have this one meal a day. Only the hunting team and the guard team would be eligible to have dinner. The townspeople each brought bowls and other containers and lined up in the square. The hunting team was at the front, followed by the guard team, and then the internal work team. At the end of the team were the children and the elderly with the weakest labor ability. Town Mayor Chen Yang, hunting and guard team leader Xiao Da, and internal work team leader Sister Zhu were next to the rice pot, responsible for distributing food. Seeing that almost everyone was there, Chen Yang said loudly, "A few days ago, our Yao town welcomed 2 new residents, Yun Kai and Qian and Chang Ning. I believe everyone has seen them. Today, Chang Ning brought us rice seeds and planting techniques. From now on, we can grow rice in Yao town. This is a kind of food that we can get stably by farming near our homes without having to risk hunting or go to great lengths to collect. With rice, our food will increase greatly. After a while, maybe everyone in the town will be able to eat 2 meals. Now, I declare that in addition to the normal hunting of the hunting team, the guard team and the clerical team, as well as all the people who can work in the town, will, starting today, under the leadership of Chang Ning, reclaim farmland and grow food." When Chen Yang just started his speech, the townspeople below began to talk about it. Most people had never heard of rice, but when they heard that everyone could eat 2 meals, their eyes lit up, and the expressions they looked at Chang Ning were full of respect and admiration. Chang Ning walked to Chen Yang and stood with the 3 main decision makers in the town. Chen Yang asked, "Chang Ning, how about you announce what to do? We will arrange the work for everyone." Chang Ning nodded and was about to speak, but Xiao Da next to him suddenly interrupted. "Wait, I don't agree. ? Chang Ning turned and looked at Xiao Da. Growing grain is a matter of life and death for Yao town, and it is the main source of food for Yao town in the future. Xiao Da is also from Yao town, and growing grain will also benefit him. Is he crazy to jump out and oppose at this time? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Master Architect. Xiao Da. Enough. Chen Yang shouted. "Mayor, I just concentrate on the work of the hunting team. You don't need to do farming anyway." Okay. Xiao Da glared at Chang Ning unwillingly. Chang Ning was puzzled. However, under the pressure of Chen Yang as the mayor, the farming matter was already a foregone conclusion, and Chang Ning was in no mood to deal with Xiao Da. When Sister Danksu began to distribute food, Chang Ning observed from the side. On average, each town resident could get a small piece of meat, about 100 grams, a large bowl of broth with oil floating in it, some green vegetable leaves in the soup, and 2 green fruits. However, the meat distributed by the hunting team and the guard team was obviously larger, with nearly 200 grams per person. The elderly and children had much smaller pieces, especially the elderly. In the end, they could only get a few bones, with very little meat on them. When the rice is planted, this situation will be much better. Looking at the townspeople who were mostly skinny, Chang Ning thought so. After dinner, everyone started to prepare for farm work. Accompanied by Sister Zhu and several strong women, Chang Ning first walked around the town's wall. The town's wall is roughly circular, and most of the houses are concentrated on both sides of the 2 cross-shaped roads in the middle, so there is a large open space in each of the 4 corners within the town's wall, each of which is about 7 or 8 acres in size. These open spaces are wasteland and need to be reclaimed. As for the water source, there is a stream about 2 meters wide outside the north gate of the town. The water flow is relatively sufficient and the water quality is also very clear. A ditch can be dug to introduce it into the town, turning the reclaimed fields into paddy fields. Chang Ning brought 20 kilograms of rice seeds this time, with an inactivation rate of nearly 40%, and the black-robed dwarf he met on the road also lost 1 or 2 kilograms. So in total, there are only about 10 kilograms of effective seeds. Since it is hybrid rice, these 10 kilograms of seeds can plant 10 acres of land. After a circle, Chang Ning decided to reclaim the open space in the northwest of the town first, which is closest to the water source and convenient for the construction of paddy fields. He asked Sister Zhu, "How many people can work in our town?" How many tools can be used? Sister Zhu said, there are many people who can work. We have more than 30 people in the office team. If necessary, we can also call the security team and the elderly and children to work together. But what tools do you mean? It's farm tools such as hoes and rakes. He suddenly realized that, since agriculture has been lost here, there must be no related farm tools. If there are some broken farm tools, he can repair them. But now it seems that there may not even be broken farm tools. This is a big problem. We only have tools such as stone knives and stone axes. Sister Zhu said. Chang Ning's eyes lit up. If there is no hoe, it can be barely used by modifying the axe blade of the stone axe. As for the rake, it is not impossible to make it with stronger wood. Turn over the land with a stone hoe first, and then it will be easier to level the land. Thinking of this, he said, then get some stone axes, the more the better. Sister Zhu asked a woman behind her to get them in a hurry. After a while, the woman brought 2 stone axes. The axe blade area was large enough and should be able to be transformed into a hoe. But, only these 2? Chang Ning asked. Sister Zhu nodded. Most of the stone axes are in the hands of the hunting team and the guard team. Our office team only has these 2. How many do they have? I don't know the exact number, but there must be 20 or 30. 20 or 30, enough. Let's go to the hunting team to ask for axes. After walking a few dozen steps, Chang Ning suddenly stopped again and turned to ask Sister Zhu, do you know where young Qian is? Chang Ning knew that Xiao Da didn't like him. Although he didn't know why, Xiao Da's attitude was obvious. Now if he went to him to ask for an axe, it was hard to say whether he would give it to him or not, but Xiao Da would definitely embarrass Chang Ning and even say some unpleasant words. Chang Ning didn't want to suffer this. Xiao Da was already an awakened person, and there was absolutely no problem with the combat effectiveness of the awakened people of the mountain mover system. What could Chang Ning do if he made things difficult for Chang Ning? Could he take out the golden desert eagle and shoot him? This is not realistic. So, find someone who is stronger than Xiao Da. If Xiao Da doesn't appreciate it, you can use your fist to convince him. This is the professional posture, to ask for the axe. Qian lives behind the stone house. I'll take you there. Sister Zhu saw Chang Ning's plan and shook her head and sighed. After a while, the 2 came to the stone house where the townspeople had taken shelter from the disaster before, entered the alley next to it, turned a corner, and came to a small wooden shack. Young Qian was lying in the haystack of the shack, holding a can of grapes in her hand, slowly putting them into her mouth one by one. Seeing someone coming, young Qian kicked several unopened cans at her feet into the haystack and hid them. Hey, there is a foundation here. Chang Ning found that behind the stone house, next to young Qian's shack, there were several remaining brick walls and a complete foundation. The entire foundation is estimated to be about 500 square meters. Judging from the size and layout, it looks very much like the single-family villas in high-end communities in the city that Chang Ning had seen before. Was this a residential area before? Maybe it was the dormitory for senior teachers of Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine? Chang Ning said hello to young Qian and then walked around the foundation. The house has collapsed, but its building materials have collapsed near the foundation. Steel bars, concrete residues, and some wall skins with wall paint are scattered everywhere. I will live in Yaosin for a while, but I can't always squeeze into the same room with Zunlu, right? There seems to be a broken house here. With my repair ability, can I repair this house? Chang Ning thought to himself. Do it as soon as you think of it. He calmed down, mobilized his consciousness to stimulate the sea of stars in his mind, and then released his power onto this foundation. I saw a huge starlight waving from Chang Ning's palm, covering the foundation in the height of more than 10 meters above it. In the starlight, the ruins were dismantled in an instant, and the surrounding building debris also surged. In a very short time, brand new bricks fell one by one in the foundation like building blocks, making dense and crisp snapping sounds. After a while, the outline of a 3-story villa appeared. Then, as if an invisible hand was painting, the bricks were covered with layers of putty and wall paint, and a layer of tiles was piled on the roof. The whole process took less than a minute. The place that was originally a ruin has become a 3-story exquisite villa with an area of about 300 square meters, a yard of 200 square meters, and a height of about 300 square meters. The house has white walls and black tiles, and a strong Chinese style of ink painting. Sister Zhu was so shocked that she couldn't speak, and young Qian Qian also opened her mouth wide, forgetting to eat her canned grapes. However, after using his ability this time, Chang Ning clearly felt that his star sea power was consumed by about 1/5. When he repaired the gate of Yaosan and the Golden Desert Eagle before, he didn't feel any consumption. In other words, he measured his blue bar this time. If it is full of blue, he can probably repair 5 villas of this size. It is also unknown how much star sea power is consumed, whether it is more related to the size or age of the repaired items, and how fast the blue bar recovers. These need to be tested later. The commotion here also attracted other people in the town. Soon, Zhen Yang, Zhen Lu, Xiao Dad and some idle people in the town gathered here. Everyone surrounded the villa and admired it. I didn't expect you to be a master architect. Zhen Yang's voice sounded behind Chang Ning. Master architect? That's a master architect. Primary architects can only speed up the construction of projects. Advanced architects can build some small wooden houses in a short time, if there are raw materials. And like you can build a huge stone structure in an instant. You can only be a master architect awakener. It turns out that he has always regarded me as an awakener of the architecture family. This is good, so I can hide my strength. Chang Ning nodded. So that's how it is. What abilities do the Grand Master and the extraordinary architecture family have? Zhen Yang smiled. I don't know about that either. The knowledge of the awakened people of the architecture family is what I heard from people when I was young and traveling outside. It's inevitable that the information is incomplete because of hearsay. Young Qian Qian squeezed through the crowd, took Chang Ning's hand, looked up at Chang Ning, and said in a soft voice, Brother Xiao Ning, let's go in and take a look. Okay. Chang Ning smiled and said, okay. Let's go. Let's go together. The two walked in front, and Zhen Yang and others followed behind, and everyone walked into the building together. Everything inside is brand new, but there is no formaldehyde smell of a new house. The first floor is a large living room with a height of 6 or 7 meters, and next to it is a dining room. The second and third floors contain 5 bedroom suites. In addition to the 3 floors above ground, there is also a basement. Because there is no furniture, the whole house looks a bit empty. But people in Yao town have never seen such a house, and even young Qian Qian lingered in the house. After walking around for a while, young Qian Qian pouted and asked Chang Ning, Brother Xiao Ning, this house is so big, with so many rooms. Chang Ning knew what she was going to say before she finished, so he smiled and said to her, it's no problem to give you a room. But you have to do me a favor first. What is it? Help me get 20 stone axes from him. Chang Ning pointed at Xiao Da who was looking around in the crowd. Please recommend and collect. Chapter 23 The Nobles of this era. Xiao Da was originally mixed in the crowd and felt that he was inconspicuous, but Chang Ning was the center of attention of everyone in the room. When he spoke, everyone looked at Xiao Da. Xiao Da was immediately very angry, but when he saw young Qian Qian walking towards him with a smile, he couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and his legs began to tremble. Just kidding. Although he used the power core of the land shark to promote the mountain mover a few days ago, young Qian Qian is a master level fighter. Xiao Da knew very clearly that young Qian Qian could beat 100 people with his strength alone. At least, that. Seeing young Qian Qian approaching him, before she could speak, Xiao Da said first, 10. I can give you 10. Our hunting team still needs to use stone axes to hunt. Young Qian Qian didn't speak, but frowned. Xiao Da swallowed his saliva again and said carefully, 15. No more. We only have more than 20 stone axes in total. Young Qian Qian looked back at Chang Ning, and Chang Ning smiled and nodded to her. She said to Xiao Da, go. Bring them here right now. Xiao Da quickly asked his men behind him to bring 15 stone axes. Chang Ning also ordered Sister Zhu to lead people to transform all the stone axes into stone hoes. Then, he led people to carefully circle around the north gate again. planned the route for diverting water from the stream, and also planned the farmland and canals in the town, including paddy fields and nursery fields, water diversion canals and drainage canals, and all the details were drawn along the way according to the agricultural books he had read. With the current dozen stone hoes, a dozen laborers can start working. But now the number of tools is still seriously insufficient, which limits the use of manpower, and there are more people who can work, but have nothing to do. After all, it is not something that can be done overnight to transform a settlement of hundreds of people who live on hunting and gathering into an agricultural town. Chang Ning suddenly remembered the East Hall of the Shanghai Museum. When Sun Lu took him and Yun Kai and Qian there a few days ago, they found a storage room for folk items. There are many tools related to rural life and agricultural production stored there. Although most of them are rotten, isn't the ability I awakened to repair them? I can go and have a look. Thinking of this, he quickly walked to the Zun family's house to find Sun Lu, but after entering the door, he didn't find anyone. Didn't the crowd who visited his new villa just now disperse? Why hasn't Sun Lu come back yet? He walked towards his new villa again and found Sun Lu on the second floor of the villa. There are 3 suites on the second floor. Yun Kai and Qian occupies one. She has moved her straw and various food to that room. Sun Lu actually occupies one as well and is holding Chang Ning's notebook in a trance. Sun Lu. Chang Ning greeted him. Sun Lu was very happy to hear Chang Ning's voice and looked up and asked, Chang Ning, why does this man named Gandhi, who is obviously very peaceful, throw nuclear bombs? Chang Ning walked to Sun Lu's side and looked at his laptop. On the monitor was a picture of a game of Civilization. Sun Lu was controlling the army on the screen with relish. Stop playing, let's go to the Shanghai Museum again. Wait. Please let me play one more round. Sun Lu said seriously without raising his head. Chang Ning knew that if he played another round of this game, it might be dawn the next day, so he forcibly pulled him up, called Yun Kai and Qian to go with him, and set off to the Shanghai Museum again. Xiao, give me another piece of candy. Yun Kai and Qian was jumping in the forest with a piece of candy that Chang Ning had just given her in her mouth, and she looked in a good mood. Children can only eat 2 candies a day at most. Eating too much is not good for teeth. Chang Ning answered while looking around. There was a goat path in the forest that was only about 1 foot wide. I don't know if it was trampled by Sun Lu or if the hunting team often walked here. It was the second time for Chang Ning to go to the Shanghai Museum, and he decided to recognize the way himself. Xiao, do you have any candy? Yun Kai and Qian saw that Chang Ning was no longer paying attention to her, so she turned around and asked Sun Lu. Sun Lu led the way in front. After hearing Yun Kai and Qian's question, he thought for a while and answered, I just read a book called Indigenous Method of Making Sugar from Beet. If I can find beets, I should be able to make sugar. That means you don't have sugar now? Yun Kai and Qian continued to smack her lips. No. Sun Lu shook his head. Hey, you useless man. Yun Kai and Qian sighed. Question mark question mark question mark. Chang Ning turned to look at Yun Kai and Qian. How talented is she to say such a thing as a 9-year-old girl? I'm very useful. I can hunt, read, farm, and do. Sun Lu retorted. Before he finished, Yun Kai and Qian interrupted. Man, you have so many reasons every day, isn't it, to cover up the fact that you are useless? Chang Ning couldn't help asking Yun Kai and Qian, where did you learn this from? Yun Kai and Qian stared at Chang Ning. How do you know I learned it from others? Then she said, Aunt Feng often says this to Uncle Qi. Who are Aunt Feng and Uncle Qi? Chang Ning replied casually. It's the housekeeper and the director of the Justice Bureau. Chang Ning turned his head and looked at Yun Kai and Qian again. He felt that the environment in which this child grew up seemed to be incompatible with the apocalyptic style at the moment. He was the housekeeper and the director of the Justice Bureau. Should he get a few maids out later? It's the person who is responsible for disciplining the maids at home, and the person who persuades everyone outside to stop fighting. Yun Kai and Qian saw that Chang Ning seemed to be puzzled, and then explained. In this apocalyptic world, where most people can't eat enough, you actually have maid at home? May I ask if you are from Versailles? Chang Ning continued to complain in his heart. However, the origin of this little girl really interested Chang Ning. Her clothes with a black metallic luster and made of materials that Chang Ning had never seen before, as well as her family conditions with a housekeeper and a maid, all proved that she came from a settlement of human survivors that was different from Yaozen, where there might be more civilizations before the destruction of the world. Where did she come from? Now that she has eaten a lot of the candy I brought her, can I test it a little? Thinking of this, Chang Ning asked, Qian Qian, where did you live before? Young Qian Qian pouted and lowered her head, and after a while she said, I lived on the 21st floor. 21st floor? There is only one place with 21 floors in the world, that huge A-shaped building. Or it can be called Yancheng. In Chang Ning's concept, Yancheng and that tall building are almost equated. Yancheng? He tried to ask. Yeah. No wonder, her last name is Yan. She is wearing clothes with extremely high technology content, and she is a very rare master level awakener. Not long ago, she was picked up by Zun Lu and brought back to Yaozen, but a 9-year-old girl obviously can't walk far alone. In fact, all the clues have long been clear. Young Qian Qian must be from Yancheng, and she is also a member of the top ruling family of Yancheng. Why did she run away by herself? Will she go back? If she goes back, will it help me find Richard on the 168th floor of Yancheng? Chapter 24 Black Moon Virus. At dusk, Chang Ning and Zun Lu each carried 2 baskets on a shoulder pole. Young Qian Qian dragged a large cart, and the 3 of them returned to Yao Town together. The carts were loaded with some farm tools and daily necessities that Chang Ning and Zun Lu had selected from the underground storage room of the East Hall of the Shanghai Museum. They were the most needed in Yao Town. Just now in the basement, Chang Ning had already repaired them all as good as new. He did not hide from Young Qian Qian and Zun Lu the fact that his awakening ability could repair items. His advantage lies in knowing which things are worth repairing and how to use them after repair, not just the ability to repair. To live in Yao Town for a long time and comfortably, it is inevitable to expose one's specific abilities to some close people. Deliberate concealment will increase the difficulty of one's survival. Moreover, Chang Ning is the only awakener of the architectural family in Yao Town and enjoys the final right of interpretation. Of course, Young Qian Qian and Zun Lu did not ask in depth whether repair is one of the abilities of the master architect. One of them is a 9-year-old girl and the other is a patient with Asperger's syndrome, and their observation ability for these trivial matters is very weak. In addition to 2 sets of shoulder pole baskets and a large cart for transportation, the things transported also include iron wooden handle hose, cloches, hose, rakes, shovels, sickles, bamboo brooms, dustpans, suits, bamboo hats, etc., and even a stone mill and a wooden blower. This pile of farm tools is enough for more than 20 laborers. More importantly, their structures are relatively simple, and the various parts can definitely be made by people in Yaozen now. Although iron products are not easy to make, it is still no problem to use stone tools instead. Next, the laborers in Yaozen can imitate these farm tools while doing farm work. One trip basically solved the problem of farm tools. In this way, it will take a few days for the first farmland to take shape. Chang Ning was very happy. After instructing Sister Zhu and the others to take their own tools and issuing orders to imitate and do farm work together, Chang Ning took another iron object from Young Qian Qian's large cart. According to Chang Ning's judgment, this is an iron bedside. It is an old-fashioned iron bed with a square head and several iron pipes distributed vertically. Now the head is rusty and several iron pipes are missing, but its outline can still be roughly seen. At the connection between the head and the bed, only the welded interface can be seen, and the bed is gone. This is what Chang Ning saw by chance on the way back. He searched for a long time, but couldn't find the bed, only the head. Now Chang Ning has his own villa in Yaozen, but the villa is empty. Accustomed to life in the 21st century, he wants to fill this house with some furniture. Various pieces of furniture can be seen everywhere in the wild, but there are too few complete old furniture. At least Chang Ning has not seen any of them in the few times he has walked outside. Can his awakened ability repair a bed with only one head? If so, then he can fill the villa with furniture in a very short time. He is looking forward to it. Carefully bringing the iron bedside, which had become quite fragile due to corrosion, to the third floor of the villa. Chang Ning mobilized the power of the stars in his mind to cover it. After a burst of star power acted on the iron bedside, in an instant, the rusty iron bedside turned into a shiny new iron bedside. Where is the bed? Where is the bed? Why is there only one bedside? Chang Ning roared silently. However, he also made clear a fact. His repair ability can only repair things with specific outlines, and can only be used when the original structural materials of the item are all around. For example, the gate of Yaosun was smashed, but the outline is still there, and the wooden boards that make up the door are still there. Chang Ning can use his ability to instantly repair it like new. Another example is the Golden Desert Eagle pistol, which is just severely corroded, and the various parts cannot be used normally, but it is still a complete pistol, so it can be repaired. And this villa, although it has collapsed, only ruins are left. But the foundation is still intact. The structure is very clear, and after the collapse, various collapsed walls and building materials fell around, so it was also repaired. And like this iron bedhead, there is only one bedhead, and the bed body is unknown. There is no way to repair the bed body out of thin air, and only the bedhead can be repaired. Do I have to continue sleeping in a sleeping bag? Chang Ning thought for a while, and decided to mobilize the masses, to pick up rags together, and turn his villa into the first scrap acquisition center in Yaosun, making it bigger and stronger. He came to the Zun family's house, found the old mayor Zun Yang, and told him his idea. Repair the ancient civilization, and improve the quality of life in Yaosun. There are so many things left over from ancient times outside. If you know what they are used for, and you can repair them, or make new things, based on the wreckage, can it greatly improve the quality of life of the residents of Yaosun? All Yaosun residents, when they go out, if they encounter items that look complete in structure and can be repaired and used, they can bring them back to Chang Ning for identification. If this is indeed a useful thing and can be repaired, then you can exchange it for food, a compressed biscuit or a small energy bar from Chang Ning. Anyway, it's just picking up things along the way, without paying anything extra, and there are really a lot of various scraps outside the town. Zun Yang thought that the townspeople would accept it, and he planned to announce it to everyone at lunch tomorrow. Finally, Chang Ning thought of Xiao Da. His hunting group was the group with the widest range of activities and the most routes outside Yao town, but Xiao Da obviously did not cooperate with him. He even opposed the construction of farmland for Yao town, which would benefit the whole town. Chang Ning wanted to know where Xiao Da's hostility came from. He thought about it for a long time, but couldn't figure it out. Zun Yang sighed. It's normal for him to oppose farming. He has 4 sons, all of whom have survived the Black Moon and are in great shape. Except for the youngest son, who is just 13 years old and cannot leave the town. The other 3 sons have joined the hunting team and are treated to 2 meals a day. Therefore, when the town starts farming, his family will at most continue to treat the whole family to 2 meals a day, and there will be no improvement. But if the main source of food in the town becomes the fields, the status of his hunting team will be greatly reduced. When agriculture develops, and there are more farmlands, everyone in the town, including his family, may be able to eat 3 meals a day. Chang Ning couldn't help but interrupt. If everyone in the town can eat 3 meals a day, then his hunting team's status can almost be said to be gone. In short, farming is a thing that has only disadvantages and no benefits for him. Chang Ning nodded. Any reform will touch the interests of vested interests. It seems that in Yao town, the resistance to agricultural reform is the vested interests of the previous hunting civilization, Xiao Da and others. He thought about it and decided to continue asking Zun Yang a question. This question comes from what Zun Yang said just now. All 4 of Xiao Da's sons survived the Black Moon. In Zun Yang's narration, it sounds like a very low probability event. This is related to the Black Moon, and it may be an important puzzle to solve the world-destroying disaster in 2331. He thought about the wording and said, "Meh, you just said that all 4 of Xiao Da's sons survived the Black Moon. Is the mortality rate of infants in our Yao town very high during the Black Moon?" Zun Yang nodded. "Not only Yao town. I used to travel around when I was young, and the towns and big cities nearby are like this. The first black month for a newborn is a gate of hell, and 9 out of 10 can't make it. But once you safely pass the first black month, then the possibility of accident in the following black months is very small. No wonder Chang Ning felt that the proportion of children in Xiao town was very low. The first black month for a newborn is a gate of hell. Only after passing the first black month can they grow up. The mortality rate is as high as 80% minus 90%. What does this represent? In the black moon, will the environment of the entire world undergo subtle changes? This change in environment is a fatal disaster for newborns whose genes are still the same as those of Chang Ning's era. Only those who are strong enough or have special genes can survive. And all the children who survived have adapted to the changes of the black moon, and there is no great danger in the future. It sounds like the black moon is some kind of virus. Only certain people are immune, and everyone else is eliminated. Is the cause of the doomsday a virus outbreak? We can only doubt it for now. There is still too little information here to judge. Chapter 25 Cloud City. The next day, Chang Ning used black charcoal to write 2 signs on his villa: Office for the Recycling and Reconstruction of Waste Products in Medicine Town, Hucheng District, Science and Technology Research Group of Medicine Town, Hucheng District. That is to say, there is no red silk in Medicine Town now, otherwise Chang Ning would cover the sign with red silk and hold a ribbon cutting ceremony or something. Although no one except himself and Zunlu knew the words on the sign. In any case, Chang Ning's waste recycling station opened in a low-key manner. In the first 3 days, most of the things sent by the townspeople were incomplete and unusable, which forced Chang Ning to spend some time during lunch in the town to explain to everyone the principle of distinguishing whether the items are complete. For example, if there are obvious signs of welding fractures, but the other side of the fracture cannot be found, it is generally incomplete. If the things found are in the shape of a cube, one or more faces are missing, it is generally incomplete, and so on, to prevent the townspeople from randomly bringing things to him. From the 4th day, Chang Ning finally received some relatively complete things, and began to distribute food to the townspeople who provided waste. These foods boosted the enthusiasm of the townspeople again. Day 14. Chang Ning collapsed on a large sofa in the living room of the villa, with Zunlu sitting on his left and Yun Kai and Qian sitting on his right. This velvet sofa combination is one of the most valuable scraps Chang Ning has received. It includes the main sofa and additional single and double sofas, as well as a chaise longue and footrest. It was dragged back to Yaosan by a strong man from a hunting group from about 3 kilometers away. After Chang Ning repaired it, he found that the main sofa could be turned into a sofa bed by lowering the backrest, so he put this sofa in his bedroom. But since Zunlu and Yun Kai and Qian sat on the sofa once, they stopped going back to their rooms and stayed in Chang Ning's room every day, just to sit on this sofa. Chang Ning didn't want to have 2 people in his room who seemed to have abnormal intellectual development, so he had to move the sofa to the living room on the 1st floor. Now the 3 of them spend most of the day on this sofa, and only go back to their rooms to sleep at night. In addition to the sofa, he also gained a wardrobe, 2 tables, 3 small cabinets, 4 table lamps, a mattress, snatched away by Yun Kai and Qian, 2 kettles, a standing fan and 3 tablets. Outside the room, there are 2 bicycles and a standing power pack composed of 5 car batteries. It can be said that the quality of life has been greatly improved compared to more than 10 days ago. Of course, Chang Ning is still not satisfied. He still has a lot of compressed biscuits in his hand to continue to exchange for scraps. He would rather the townspeople be more powerful and exchange his food. During this period, as one of the highest ranking people in the town, Chang Ning can have lunch and dinner twice. He found that the meat of this era seemed to strengthen his physique, enhance strength and agility. Although the food later was not as good as the bonus provided by the land shark that he ate for the first time that day, he still insisted on eating the tasteless stew for more than 10 days, so that the compressed biscuits he brought, except for the few pieces taken away by Yun Kai and Qian, there were still a lot left. In the past 10 days, the first piece of farmland in Xiao town has been reclaimed, and the canal has been dug. Half of the labor force available to Chang Ning in the town is raising rice seedlings. The rice seedlings are growing well, and will be transplanted to paddy fields soon. Planting rice seedlings will be another hard job. The other half is building public toilets and digging manure pits in the town. Of course, they also dug a sewer from Chang Ning's villa to the public manure pit to ensure that the toilet in Chang Ning's villa can use a flush toilet. Before the chemical industry started and fertilizers were produced, farmyard manure was a necessary condition to ensure fertile farmland and a good harvest. Among the more than 100 local law books brought by Chang Ning, there are methods for making farmyard manure. In addition, Zunlu is building a water tower with wooden materials. After the water tower is built, Yao town can use tap water. There is a lack of materials for making water tanks, so there is no rush to build the water tower. Chang Ning has already told Zunlu that the laptop he brought is the most confidential property of the Yao Town Science and Technology Group, and the content on it must not be leaked. Zunlu said that, as long as he is allowed to play computer games for 2 hours a day, he will not leak the notebook, even if he is beaten to death. But in addition to the laptop, Zunlu found several other books that can be shared with the townspeople. During this period of time, Chang Ning and Zunlu have used their free time to teach the children in the town to read. In short, Yao Town is developing rapidly and has a promising future. The sun began to set in the west, and it was around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Chang Ning stood up from the sofa. At this time every day, people who hunted and gathered outside the town began to return one after another, and some people would come to Chang Ning with waste items. What surprises will today bring? Chang Ning stretched his body and looked forward to it. Woo! A sound of a French horn came from the direction of the north gate. This is a signal of an emergency. What happened? Are there more evil beasts attacking the city? Chang Ning and the other two quickly walked out of the villa and came to the vicinity of the north gate. At this time, the main force of the hunting group had not returned yet, and the guard group and the strong women and old people in the town, who were capable of fighting, were gathering here. What happened? Zhen Yang pushed aside the crowd and asked the guard holding the French horn at the north gate. The guard pointed outside, and a few dozen meters away, at the junction of the open space and the forest, 3 figures stood. The 3 men were each wearing a black robe with a hood covering their faces, standing at the edge of the forest, motionless. After seeing that most of the people in the town had gathered, they slowly walked towards the town gate. Chang Ning was very familiar with their attire. The last time he returned to Yao Town from the laboratory, he was attacked by a dwarf dressed like this and almost died. Are these 3 people here to seek revenge on him? Thinking of this, Chang Ning turned his head to look at Yun Qian, only to find that Yun Qian shrank her neck and walked behind the crowd, hiding behind the figures of a group of adults, and disappeared. The 3 men stopped when they were more than 20 meters away from the town gate. The leader straightened his chest and raised his head, saying to everyone, "I obey the order of the Lord of Yancheng City. I would like to inform Yaosun, starting this year, in order to protect the residents of Yaosun from being robbed by lynching and Yangcheng, the Lord of Yancheng City will begin to collect taxes from Yaosun. All adult people in Yaosun must hand in 10 days of food rations within 1 month starting from today. The Lord of the city will grant mercy. Yaosun can collect tax grain on its own and send someone to hand it over to Yancheng within the specified time. Attention! Dried meat that has been stored for more than 1 year cannot be handed in as tax grain. All tax grain must be fresh. Do you understand?" In addition, there was an envoy from Yancheng who set out to inspect Jiangdong 20 days ago to inform about the tax payment matters, but disappeared near Yaosun. He has not returned yet. The envoy was dressed like the 3 of us. If anyone in Yaosun knows the whereabouts of the envoy, they can report the news. If there is an exact trace of the envoy, this year's tax grain can be exempted. Please recommend and collect. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.